These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Thom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Health. More info at teethhealth.com, code Thom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Thom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Thom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Thom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Thom.
We say fight back!
Hey, it's Thom Hartmann. We're reading from A Dark Money, the hidden history of the billionaires behind the rise of the radical right in today's Thom Hartmann University Book Club. This is from Chapter 11, page 271. The official opening of the 112th Congress took place on January 5th, 2011, when Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, handed off an oversized ceremonial gavel to her successor, John Boehner. But a new era of ultra-conservative billionaire influence had already begun. Before the public swearing-in ceremony got underway, David Koch, whose donor network had spent at least $130.7 million on winning a Republican majority, was in the new Speaker-to-be's office, ornate office, chatting amiably with his staff. The People's House was under new management, and critics would suggest new ownership. While Koch was a very public presence on the Capitol, his political adjutant, Tim Phillips, the president of Americans for Prosperity, was deep in the inner sanctum of the congressional committee that mattered most to the bottom line of Koch Industries. Phillips's most important destination that day was the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which under the new Republican majority had now increased its power to block President Obama's environmental agenda in Congress. The committee could bury progress on climate change and harass the EPA for the foreseeable future. And then just jumping through a little anecdote about Lee Fong and David Koch, they continue. In Plutocrats, the rise of the new global super-rich and the fall of everyone else, journalist Krista Freeland describes how those with massive financial resources almost universally use them to secure politics and policies beneficial to their interests, often at the expense of the less well-off. In the United States, a number of studies have shown that in recent years, this tendency has distorted politics in very specific ways. In a study he conducted for the nonpartisan Sunlight Foundation, the political scientist Lee Drutman found that increasingly concentrated wealth in America resulted in more polarization and extremism, especially on the right. Very rich benefactors in the Republican Party were far more opposed to taxes and regulations than the rest of the country. He discovered the more Republicans depend upon 1% of the 1% donors, the more conservative they tend to be. The 112th Congress soon unfolded as a case study of what David Frum, an advisor to the former President George W. Bush, described as the growing and, in his view, destructive influence of the Republican Party's radical rich. The radicalization of the party's donor base, he observed, has propelled the party to advocate policies that were more extreme than anything since Barry Goldwater and his 1964 presidential campaign. It also led Republicans in Congress to try tactics they would never have dared use before, end quote. Hard data supported this. Harvard's Theta Scott poll found that the House took the biggest leap to the far right since political scientists began recording quantitative measurements of legislators' positions. There was no better example than the Koch's newly won influence over the House Energy and Commerce Committee. In the previous Congress, the panel had been chaired by Henry Waxman, a liberal Democrat from California, who had quarterbacked the House's successful passage of the cap and trade bill, only to see it die in the Senate. Now the new Republican leadership stocked the committee with oil industry advocates, many of whom owed huge campaign debts to the Kochs. Koch Industries PAC was the single largest oil and gas industry donor to members of the panel, outspending even ExxonMobil. It had donated to 22 of the committee's 31 Republican members and 5 of its Democratic members, too. In addition, 5 out of the 6 Republican freshmen on the committee had received outside support from Americans for Prosperity. Meanwhile, many of the new committee members had signed an unusual pledge swearing fealty to the Koch's agenda. They promised to vote against any kind of carbon tax unless it was offset by comparable spending cuts, an unlikely scenario. The no climate tax pledge was invented by Americans for Prosperity in 2008, when the Supreme Court cleared the way for the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases as it does other pollutants. The Koch's pledge was modeled on the enormously successful one that the anti-tax crusader Grover Norquist had used to intimidate Republican lawmakers from raising taxes. But in this instance, it served not a cause so much as a company. By the start of the legislative session in 2011, fully 156 members of Congress had signed the Koch brothers' no climate tax pledge. Many returning members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee had already taken the pledge, and of the 12 new Republicans on the panel, 9 were signatories, including 5 of the 6 freshmen. A prime example of the symbiotic relationship between the Kochs and the committee was Morgan Griffith, who had defeated Rick Boucher in the district that represented Saltville, Virginia, and was among the new wave of appointees to the Energy and Commerce Committee who were openly indebted to the Koch brothers for their seats. Americans for Prosperity operatives were guests of honor at a victory rally soon after the election, at which Griffith gushed, quote, "I'm just thankful that you all helped me out in so many ways," end quote. The Koch's investment soon paid off. Once in office, Griffith became an outspoken skeptic of mainstream climate science, drawing national ridicule for lecturing scientific experts as they testified before Congress that they needed to consider the possibility that Mesopotamia and the Vikings owed their success to global warming, and the melting ice caps on Mars showed that humans were not its cause on Earth. Congressman Griffith became a lead player in the House Republicans' war on the EPA, demanding that the agency be reined in. Within a month after he took office, he and other House Republicans gutted the EPA budget by a 27%. Dark money, the hidden history of the billionaires behind the rise of the radical right. Jane.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And happy Monday. Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. There is a lot to get into today, and we will be going through all of it. We're going to start in just a moment with Patrick Hedger and the minimum wage, and I've got a whole nother take on that I'll share with you after Patrick and I talk. The fate and future of American democracy hanging on the minimum wage. Is it time to add the Republican Party to the Domestic Terrorism Watchlist? We'll be talking about that in the second hour of our program. And in our third hour, the real story of the Covid catastrophe is larger than you may know, and substantially larger, and we'll be getting into that as well. But to kick this thing off, Patrick Hedger is the Vice President of Policy at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, a conservative think tank. Prior to this, Patrick was with the Competitive Enterprise Institute's Center for Technology and Innovation, and worked at FreedomWorks, the right-wing group started by the Koch network back in the day, who brought us all those protests against Obamacare. ProtectingTaxpayers.org is the website, and Patrick Hedger 18 is, or Pat Hedger 18 is Patrick's Twitter handle. Patrick, it's been a long time since we've talked. I'm glad to have you back on the program. It seems to me that the real complaint here that we're getting from giant corporations and even the Congressional Budget Office, which goes out of their way to point out how raising the minimum wage will decrease the rate at which wealth is being transferred from working people up to the top 1%. In other words, it will benefit working people. The real complaint is that these big companies that are paying crap wages are being subsidized with our tax dollars through Medicaid, food stamps, and housing support, and they don't want to lose that subsidy. What say you?
Yeah, well, hey, Tom, it's good to see you. It's been too long, and I appreciate you having me back on. So what I would say is, one, we're talking about lots of different types of businesses, right? And we're talking about a one-size-fits-all policy. So we're not just talking about the minimum wage as applied to the mega corporations. We're talking about the minimum wage as also applied to the mom-and-pop shops. And what I would say is that what we see the companies that are lobbying for an increase in the minimum wage, they're actually some of the largest retailers and employers in the country. You have Amazon and Walmart and Costco that are already raising their wages to those levels, or at least advocating for a raise in the minimum wage to those levels. And so I worry that their benevolence on that issue, if you will, is also, there's a little bit of cronyism there, where they say, hey, look, we can afford to pay these wages and we know our competitors can't. So I get concerned about that, because ultimately, when you start treating wages the same way that you treat cigarettes or want to treat carbon, by increasing the price of low wages, you're going to get less people consuming low-wage workers. And by that, I mean fewer people hiring them, or reducing their benefits on the fringe by reducing health care benefits or reducing sick leave benefits, but increasing that wage for the people that are able to keep their jobs. So this money is coming from somewhere, and I worry that the people that we're trying to help by increasing the national minimum wage would disproportionately be harmed by it.
So in other words, you want to maintain these subsidies. You want to maintain a situation where you and I, through our tax dollars, are subsidizing, in your mind, small employers who can't be bothered to put together a business plan where they can actually pay a reasonable wage. You're okay with leaving some 30 million Americans working full-time and living in poverty. That's fine with you. And it just seems to me fundamentally immoral, even, to say that we're going to, as a nation, support people whose business model is to exploit workers. I don't get how you could possibly support that, Patrick.
Well, because the true minimum wage is always zero, and I'd rather, put people in a position where they can actually command some sort of wage and then gain the knowledge and skills required to be able to command higher wages later on.
Yeah, we heard that during the Reagan era. This highfalutin language, the reality is that if the real minimum wage is not zero, there are only two states, Louisiana and Alabama, that have no minimum wage, although the minimum wage is around $5 in some states. But when you look at blue states that already have minimum wages of $12 to $15, they're prosperous. And beyond that, I would ask you to name one single year. The minimum wage has been raised somewhere in the neighborhood of between 25 and 30 times. I'd have to go track down the exact number, since it was passed in 1935. And every single time, Republicans, billionaires, and corporations have yelled and screamed about, oh my God, the sky is falling, we're going to have to start laying people off, we're going to lose jobs. And it has never happened. No conservative can point to even one single year where, when the minimum wage went up, and there have been minimum wage increases that have exceeded 30% on several occasions, where when the minimum wage went up, over the next 3 years, you saw an actual decline in employment. It literally has never happened. Otherwise, every Republican in America would be saying, 1973, you don't want to repeat what happened in 1973. My God, it would be a disaster.
Well, so the two responses to that. So in certain situations, and when states raise their minimum wages, you may have a catch-up effect, right, where the natural wage level is already at a level that's beyond where the minimum wage is being raised to. And that in and of itself kind of proves the lack of a need of this policy, where you have natural prices that are already raising people to what people are now considering a livable wage, or the minimum acceptable wage. So there's that. So you have a bit of a catch-up effect where you kind of get away with raising the minimum wage without the major side effects that we'd expect. But, just the economic logic tells us that when you raise the price of something, people are going to consume less of it, right? I mean, I would assume, I don't know, I haven't watched your show in a while, but I would assume you're probably in favor of a price on carbon. Why? Because you want people to produce less carbon. Right?
Carbon is not people.
But it is a byproduct.
We're talking people here, Patrick. We're talking human beings. We're talking people who have to go home and face their kids every week and say, I'm sorry, there's not going to be enough food on Friday.
Man, I'm just as concerned about them as you are. I'm just concerned that when you raise the wage level to their employer, then they lose their job. I mean, that's what I mean by the true minimum wage being zero, is when there's an employment displacement. And when
if an employer cannot afford to pay, if an employer has put together, small or large, has put together a business plan for their business where they can't afford to pay minimum wage people, then they have a flawed business model. It's just that simple.
Again, what you're advocating there is $0 wages for the jobs.
No,
that are
I
never
believe in the
created.
marketplace. What I'm saying, Patrick, is if somebody goes out of business because they can't afford to pay their workers, there's 100 entrepreneurs behind them who will come into that same marketplace and provide that same good or service and pay a minimum wage. People can figure this out. Entrepreneurs are smart people. They're not idiots. That's why, again, in 100 years, raising the minimum wage has never caused a loss of employment.
I just don't see that as the case. When we saw numerous studies that happened in Washington State where jobs were, when they raised the minimum wage in Seattle, you had people that were taking on employment outside of the city limits that traditionally lived in Seattle because they couldn't find the hours or the benefits that they needed to sustain themselves, even though
prosperity increased.
Right, but
and along with that prosperity was more demand for goods and services and more economic activity. The more money you can inject at the bottom, Patrick, you know this. Come on, you have an economics background. The more money you can inject at the bottom, the more you're going to stimulate the economy.
Well, again, you're talking about it's not injecting more money. I mean, business owners aren't exactly lining their pockets right now. We're talking about an economy where we've just injected hundreds of billions of dollars out of thin air from the federal government into small businesses to keep their doors open or keep their doors shut, if you will. So I just don't know where you think this is coming from. All righty. I'll leave you with the last word. Patrick Hedger, Vice President of Policy at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. The website is protectingtaxpayers.org. You can tweet Patrick at Pat Hedger, Hedger 18, Pat Hedger 18. Patrick, thanks for dropping by. It's always good talking with you. Hey, thanks for having me, Tom. Okay. 15 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I actually have even a much larger concern about the minimum wage than anything that Patrick and I just talked about. We'll pick up that after this break. And welcome back. Morris in Long Beach, California. Hey, Morris, thanks for listening to KPFK. What's on your mind?
Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Professor. Look here, in church they got this song that says, sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine. And that's what we're going to do this morning. I like that. We're going to sweep around the front door of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the chairperson of the Budget Committee. Everybody knows that. We're going to hashtag Don't Kill It Bernie. Hashtag Don't Kill It Bernie refers to that $15 minimum wage per hour, $15, which would put $90+ billion in circulation forever. Now, this 1.9 COVID thing, that's a one-shot thing, stimulus thing, and that's a good thing. We need it right now. But $15 lasts forever. Okay, this parliamentarian stuff, the corporate Democrats, which includes our president, are trying to hang their hat on. So Bernie's got to keep that in it. If we're going to go down, let's go down with our principles, because if we can't win this right here, we will have trouble in 2022 and 24, because we haven't kept no promises. But more so than that, Professor, we ain't showing no spine to get out there and fight. We're in a dog fight, okay? And Joe Manchin threatening to do this and threatening to do that. Let them people of West Virginia find out that Joe Manchin was the reason they're not getting $15 an hour or any COVID benefits. Okay, the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is behind all of this. They like water. You know, water can be salt or fresh. So they're financing both sides. But we as progressives, we got to stand up and say, the Republicans got a battle going on. We got one going on with our corporate people and our progressives. So hashtag Don't Kill It Bernie. Keep the $15 in there. He's chairperson of the Budget Committee for a reason. Look here, if your rent was due on the 1st of April and you had $1,000 and you can go to Vegas with that $1,000 and put a bet that would bring you $3,000 that Bernie would keep this in or take it out, you bet he'd keep it in. Am I right or wrong?
I think you're right, but I don't think that Bernie is the guy. I get your point, you know, if it's going to get out of committee and all that kind of stuff, but it's coming across to the House as a privileged motion. I mean, in theory, Chuck Schumer could simply bring it directly to the floor because it came right out of the House. So it doesn't even need to go through committee. But that would require Kamala Harris. And so what I'm thinking, Morris, is that the hashtag should be hashtag something like Harris, fire the parliamentarian, or Harris, ignore the parliamentarian, or, Harris, do what Republicans have done in the past and fire. I realize that's too long for a hashtag. You get what I'm saying?
That's pretty good. Yeah, brother, I like that. Okay, well, you go on, Tom. I had a chance to do my little rant. I'll give it to you later on.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Morris. Good talking with you. Appreciate the call. Dennis in Riverside, California. Hey, Dennis, what's up?
Hey, what's up? Listen, the minimum wage thing. I've thought this for years. Whenever they have the argument about it, say minimum wage is suppressed for, say, 13 or 14 years, and meanwhile prices rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hello? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then when they say let's raise it because you got to work an hour to buy a price of a hamburger meal, somebody says no, that's the cause of rising prices, raising minimum wage. Well, what causes it in that 13 or 14 year interval? Magic?
Exactly. No, the labor costs are typically, there are a few exceptions to this, but broadly speaking, labor costs are a very small part of the cost of running a business. And most businesses can absorb moderate increases in labor costs, like at the bottom end, very simply by simply reducing slightly their profits. Dennis, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So David Perry over at Medium.com put together a list of 38 reasons to investigate the Trump administration. Everything from the Russian influence over the 2016 election, to the Trump family's collusion with Russia, to Ivanka Trump's trademarks, to federal spending at Trump properties, to the civilians killed by Trump's drone strikes, to the Trump administration's role in turning the United States into the global epicenter for the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, we are. Yes, it's grim. Their decision to sideline the CDC, politicizing mask wearing just to try to get himself reelected, the number of people who died because the White House kept PPE from blue states, from Democratic-led states, the contents of the Trump documents that Trump refused to release to the House Judiciary Committee and other committees, all the people who wouldn't speak, at all, ignoring subpoenas, violations of the Hatch Act, the deportation of COVID-positive immigrant families, illegal altering of records. Anyhow, there's a whole list. It's over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. Welcome back. So let me take this even a step beyond where I started. Okay, raising the minimum wage is the moral thing. It's the easy thing, easy in terms of business. I mean, as I said to Patrick, if a business can't afford, in quotes, to raise the minimum wage, let them go out of business. They will be replaced by another business that knows how to do it. It's just that simple. This is how it has been since the beginning of our republic. This is how it is in every other developed country in the world that has a minimum wage higher than the United States, which is the vast majority of them. I think it might be all of them, all of the 34 OECD countries, but I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so I can't absolutely confirm that. But I guarantee you it's the vast majority, if it's not all of them. So all that's true. But the reason why I think raising the minimum wage right now is an existential crisis for our nation, for democracy itself, is because the big battle right now is not between Democratic ideas about how the economy should work and Republican ideas about how the economy should work. It's not the debate that Patrick and I just had, which is kind of the old-fashioned left versus right debate. The real fight that's going on right now is between a Democratic Party that believes in governance, that believes that government can do things to make the lives of people better, that government can provide a floor through which people don't fall, that government can provide those basic functions that the framers and the founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution laid out in the preamble to the Constitution, where they said that the general welfare was and domestic tranquility, what Jefferson referred to as happiness in the Declaration of Independence, the domestic tranquility and the general welfare were the reasons why they were creating the Constitution and why America was reinventing itself after the Articles of Confederation into a democratic republic. That republic itself, the United States of America as a democratic republic, small d, small r, the United States of America as a democracy is actually what's at stake in this debate around the minimum wage. Now, let me explain. Obviously, 30 million people working full-time and yet living in poverty is not a crisis that is going to end democracy. It's a crisis. It's a moral crisis. It's a terrible failing here in the United States, but it's not going to end democracy. Those people are not going to rise up and overthrow the government. Frankly, most of them are too poor to be able to even, engage in such a thing. They can't afford a $5,000 military-style, assault weapon. No, the real danger to democracy comes when people like that and the middle class in general, what's left of it. Keep in mind, after 30 years of Reaganomics, 10 years ago, more than half of Americans ceased to be in the middle class, which means that we have to recalibrate the middle class because the middle isn't where the middle used to be. But the real danger to democracy is that larger spectrum of people, that bottom 70% of Americans, basically, who are earning under $40,000 a year individually. The median individual income in the United States right now is $30,000 a year, $15 an hour. That's the median income, individual income. The median household income is around between 48 and 50, depending on whose numbers you're looking at. But that's because 2 people are working. In fact, the average household has 2.3 people working in it. Unlike 50 years ago when it was 1.2 people. So the crisis is that those people are going to say, government can't do a damn thing for anybody. The Democrats can't even pass stuff. They can't even get the damn minimum wage passed. Screw the Democrats. They're ineffectual. They're incapable. I'm going to go with that strongman guy, Donald Trump, or his heir, his Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, Rick Scott heir, who claims that he's going to help me. He's going to help the middle class. And I don't care if he turns this country into a fascist, neoliberal paradise. I don't care what else they do. I just want somebody to do something. I mean, this was the dynamic that played out in 2016. Donald Trump promised to raise taxes on rich people. He promised to raise wages on working people. He promised to give everybody a national health care system. He promised to cut student debt. He promised to bring jobs back from overseas. Those are all Bernie's positions. But they were in the mouth of a Republican and they were credible, and Hillary Clinton was saying, well, I don't know that we can do all those things. And here we are. And as long as Democrats can't do all those things because they're kowtowing to the Senate parliamentarian or to the Republicans, democracy itself is at risk. This is not just about the minimum wage. This is about the survival of America as a republic.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And Kamala Harris needs to have the strength to do what Republicans have done in the past and fire the parliamentarian and replace her with somebody who will give us the information we need. Free Speech TV needs you. Seriously. Free Speech TV, 4 times a year, we do this fundraising drive for Free Speech TV to keep the network on the air. And we need your help. One of the things that you can do to help is help us get the word out about Free Speech TV. Tell your friends about it, talk about it on social media, talk about it on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever realm you may be. Take your favorite segments from Free Speech TV. They put little clips up on social media. You could retweet those, or share those, or like those. You can initiate your own. Let's try to increase the number of people who are watching this television network and this program, and just do it ourselves, right? I mean, who better than you and I, who know the quality of this network, than you and I who know the really extraordinary value of this network. And while we're at that, I mean, if you can't afford to make any kind of contribution at all, I get it. But most people watching Free Speech TV could afford $15, $25, $50, could afford $10 a month. I realize that, there are some people in great distress. If you're one of them, just share the word. That doesn't cost anything. And, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your relatives. But if you can't afford to help, Free Speech TV needs your help right now. We need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this show going here on Free Speech TV. And it all depends on whether you pick up the phone and call 877-378-8669 now or not. It's up to you. How much is Free Speech TV worth to you? What kind of value do you get from Free Speech TV? Is it worth as much as, having a cup of coffee every week? Is it worth as much as going to see the shrink every month? Is it, so the cup of coffee might be $10 a week. Seeing the shrink might be $100 or $200 a month. Is it worth, Free Speech TV part of your mental health program? Is it part of your political awareness program? Is it worth, what you may pay to subscribe to an online newspaper like the New York Times or the Washington Post? What's it worth to you? Can you please call now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution of that amount to Free Speech TV? Or make a monthly contribution, which is the very best. Become a member of the Sustainers Circle and help Free Speech TV know what the baseline that they have for their budget is. Can you do that now, please? 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Free Speech TV offers an extraordinary spectrum of programs with a variety of different kinds of diversity and viewpoints. And the grounding of Free Speech TV, the thing that's at the foundation of all of it, is truth. You will not see a program on Free Speech TV where you can fact check it and find that they are lying to you. You can't. Now, you've got websites like MediaMatters.org that literally fact check Fox News every single day. Fox News and people on Fox News are literally telling lies. And you and I know this, and on right-wing hate radio and a lot of the websites out there, a lot of the right-wing websites. But you can't find those errors on Free Speech TV. And I'll tell you from personal experience, the rare occasions when I get something wrong, and I'm not bragging on how I'm always right. I'm telling you that I put in the work to make sure if I'm saying something, I can back it up. But on the rare occasions when I get something wrong, people do reach out to me to correct it, and I correct it on the air. Because I want you to know that you can trust what I have to say. And I am not speaking just for myself. I know that every person on this network, or at least every person on this network that I personally know, and that's probably at least half of the people who have a program on Free Speech TV, feel the same way. They want you to know, they want it to be real, that their program is truthful. So if truth is important to you, call now. With a $20 gift, there's 2 premiums available to you, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack, just in time for spring. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or a new tote bag, a new Free Speech TV tote bag. With the $75 gift, there's the the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, same design as before. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or an autographed copy of my latest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. With a $240 gift, You can join one of our virtual meet and greets, or you can get both the Monopoly book, The Hidden History of Monopoly, and The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author. That would be me. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, our bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the Oligarchy book. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and we'll hang out. All right, so those are the premiums. But the real thing that you get when you contribute to Free Speech TV by calling 877-378-8669 right now, the real important thing that you get is the programming. You get the truth. You get information that you can use and you can share, things that you can learn that grow your life. So call now, please. Thank you. On the Science Revolution this week, Nick Dearden is here with Global Justice Now. Should America have a people's vaccine? Nick is calling for an immediate suspension of patents on COVID-19 vaccines and an international plan to ramp up production as rapidly as possible. Barry C. Lynn from Open Markets Institute drops by on how monopolies have created a crisis in the food industries. Zach Corrigan is here from Food and Water Justice on how pork slaughter plants with self-inspection rules are not working well and endangering our health. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are available. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. Let's pick up your phone calls here. Michelle in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Michelle, what's on your mind?
I want to give a perspective on the minimum wage from an employer's perspective. My husband is an executive chef. Thank God his restaurant is still open. The owners of the restaurant want the minimum wage to be up to $15 an hour because they pay on average $18 an hour for their employees. And another friend of mine owns another restaurant, and he does the same thing. So if the floor is raised, then wages will be raised for everyone, not just. But they were tired of hearing people whine about not being able to make it on $7.25 an hour when they're paying $18 an hour. I mean, they're squeaking by during this pandemic, but they're squeaking by. And they want everybody else's wages to come up so they're not the ones having to do other things. That's all I got to say.
Well, not only
have
that.
a good day. Oh, go ahead.
Not only that, Michelle, if in Kansas City, Missouri, the wages go up to $15 an hour, your husband's restaurant's going to have more customers coming in, able to afford, a monthly meal there.
Exactly. And if you can't take care of your employees, how are you going to take care of anybody else?
There you go.
Thank you, Tom. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Julia in Redding, California. You want to take a contrarian position on this?
I just wanted to point out, I've been hearing arguments, especially from the corporate Democrat side, that raising the minimum wage would reduce the job market. And I said, yeah, I agree. The father that's working 3 jobs to support his family will only have to work 2.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Brilliant. Or the person who's working 2 jobs will only have to work 1. Two $7.25 an hour jobs they can replace, and working 80 hours a week. They can now work 40 hours a week and have time with their kids and their families. Julia, I thought you were going in a completely different direction, but brilliant. Thank you so much for that. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Oh, I appreciate listening to you.
Oh, thank you, Julia. Thank you for your kind words. Patrick in East Lansing, Michigan. Patrick, what's up?
Thank you, Tom. This is a great discussion. I had 2 points. I was listening to the One Fair Wage press conference after spending a weekend talking to various groups about this issue, and I learned that any senator can ask to have the parliamentarians' ruling overruled. And I thought that if we lobbied our senators, even ones who support this, we could ask them to do that. And if Vice President Harris overruled the parliamentarian, it'd take 60 votes to overrule her. So,
that's correct.
If they're going to make these arguments, what you're saying today on the show is exactly where we need to go. Because if it fails to have a mandate, to have a minimum wage, Bernie Sanders wants to do what Eric Levitt said in New York Magazine, which is just to put in a tax measure like the Republicans did when they tried to repeal the individual mandate and make businesses that hire people and don't pay the $15 minimum wage become ineligible for tax credits and federal funds. And I would urge anyone to read this New York Magazine article. It's very good on that procedural question.
Yeah.
The other article that's so good on it is Michael Reich at Morning Consult, because he puts a number on how much we are paying. He says raising the $15 minimum wage will save the federal budget $65 billion. And that's because we get $21 billion more in income tax revenues and payroll taxes. But then we save $32 billion on all these programs, food stamps and other programs. So if companies have to pay the price of losing their tax credits, then we can claw back this money that we're giving them. And the only last thing I'll say is the job effects are just not there, the lost jobs. And Dale Bellman did a wonderful book, What Does the Minimum Wage Do? And good summaries of his book are online in articles. He worked at Economic Policy Institute. He surveyed 70 studies. He found statistically insignificant evidence of any job loss, which just straight down the line hammers your point home. And I couldn't agree with you more, and I thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah. Patrick, I would add that the two strategies that you described, the strategy of Kamala Harris saying, we're simply going to ignore the parliamentarian, as Republicans have done in the past, and we're going to push this through. That strategy and the Plan B strategy that Bernie has talked about of putting immediately into law a federal law that says any company that doesn't pay $15 an hour isn't eligible for all the goodies you get from the federal government are not mutually exclusive, because this minimum wage, this $15 minimum wage, phases in over 5 years. And Bernie's plan to attack companies, essentially, take away their federal goodies for not paying $15 an hour, could take effect immediately. So you could do both. And thank you very much for bringing it up, Patrick. It's great to hear from you. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Oh, Tom, this subject is really so close to my heart because your guest just told every old lie in the book, and starting with that the minimum wage is really zero. And as the last caller pointed out, you don't have the job losses because of it, because presumably, as you know, Tom, as an employer, you're not hiring more people than you need, right? You don't have people sitting around not doing anything. That if I had to pay, Joyce and Sean and so more, I'd get rid of you or I'd get rid of, Paul, because presumably you wouldn't hire me to sit and do nothing. You're hiring the people that you need.
Correct.
So you're
let me add to that, Paul, if I could, just very briefly. There was a time in America when the minimum wage was zero. And we called those minimum wage workers who earned zero slaves. And,
That's right.
So if the Republicans really want to make that pitch, good luck.
No, that is the pitch that the Confederate Party is making, Tom. They are still the party of slavery. And, you get this, first of all, these are not job creators. They're time wasters. And I call them time wasters. I love Julia, the woman from California, her saying, I might not have to work 3 jobs. I will only have to work 2. What a clever, I just love that. These employers are time wasters. And it goes back to this. If my daily bread costs $1 and I make 99 cents, I still can't buy my daily bread. You wasted my whole damn day. And I still don't get my daily bread. And I sure as hell can't afford to pay taxes. So by low wages, this is how they convince the Trump, the people who don't make it, that the taxes should be low because, look, you're making so little, you couldn't afford to pay any taxes. So they put the person in the same mind frame as the rich who say, I don't want to pay any taxes. And so it really is just a big lie. But you know what? Here's the foil they always use. And a local talk show host here in Seattle, and the one down who talks down near you, I won't mention his name, says, well, why wouldn't it 15? Why not 30 or 45 or $50 an hour if that's so great for society?
Stupid.
And I'm asked the question, okay, well, let's take it your way. If you don't want to double it or triple it, if that's not good, how about we cut it in half? Why don't we make it $3.50 or $2.40 or $1.80 an hour? Wouldn't that be better for society? Couldn't employers hire more people, which they wouldn't because they don't need them? But you know what they say? If that's what they're willing to work for, and Tom, that is exactly the wording that was in Lochner, that if two people want to agree to have you work for, 2 cents an hour, that you should be able to do that. In fact, in Lochner, the argument was that a baker should have to, a baker should have to work in the basement of a building where the ceiling is only 4.5 feet tall in temperatures of baking ovens and work there 20 hours a day. And the state of New York had no right to say anything about the contract between that employer and the baker, that you should be able to tell them to do anything you want. And here's another thing, Tom, I'm on my rant here. If they find that an employer has more than 40 work hours per person and they're splitting it up to part-time help, I think you should have to pay $17.25 an hour, because where else can you buy things for less? Whenever you buy it in lesser amounts, you end up paying more, right? When you buy the economy size, you get it for less. But if you buy things in a small package, except when it comes to buying help, when it comes to buying labor, they can do it, and they cut your hours. If you're only hiring, if you could hire for 40 hours a week and you're only giving somebody 25 or 20 hours a week, I think you should have to pay $17.25 an hour, 15% more, just like you do when you buy a small amount of a product. See, they never like to obey the economic rules that they put down, or the laws they say that they don't want to buy it for. And here's another thing about restaurants: the price of food has gone up 10 times since 1968. It's 10 times more, at least 10 times more. And I remember looking up the price of ground beef in 1968 was 39 cents a pound, and you can't touch it for $3.90. Now you can't touch it for practically under $6 a pound. And so you ever hear restaurants complaining about, we just couldn't pay the price of food, right? When the price of food goes up, they say we have to just raise our rates. But when it comes to labor, they don't feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. Paul, thank you for the call. Paul does great rants. We'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. Chris in Humphrey, Arkansas, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Chris, what's up?
Hey, I pay $20 an hour. I'm disabled, and my sole source of income for my company is my Social Security check. And, I'm trying to get PPP, and I am worried about my my student loan. I have gotten my student loan forgiven because of my disability, but I look at my credit report, and there is still a charge-off for like $30,000 on there from my student loan, and I can't get rid of it.
Are you saying that you are running a one-man small business, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I got it. Thank you. Scotty in Seattle. Hey, Scotty, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. I was just thinking that in tying this $15 minimum wage to what I think is the collapse of democracy, if the Republicans are deliberately trying to keep people in poverty, that is
and they are
similar to the insurrection, and they're trying. I call it the collapse of democracy. And where is this leading to? The new dark ages?
Well, what it's leading to is Donald Trump's strongman fascist rule. You've got now several serious candidates. Rick Scott, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton are at the front of the pack. Kristi Noem, I think, is more of a flash in the pan. I think that Ted Cruz is just too smarmy. Nobody's ever going to really vote for him. But these three white men, I think, and Nikki Haley, I think, has counted herself out by criticizing Donald Trump. I think she's really hurt her chances of running in 2024. So you've got, in particular, these three white guys who are all in on Trumpism, are sucking up to Donald Trump, would have the support of Donald Trump when they run. And if one of them becomes president running against Kamala Harris, which is going to be a bit more of a lift because she's a black woman at least in terms of the white racist vote, which will show up against her. On the other hand, it might further animate the black vote as Barack Obama's presidency did. So, it might balance out. Who knows? But if one of those three guys becomes president in 2024, you can kiss America goodbye. Because 4 years later, this country will not resemble anything we have ever seen in this country before, or anything that we've ever seen in Canada before, in North America, essentially. What you will see is the United States becoming Hungary.
I don't think they're qualified to govern even under any circumstances. What the hell are they going to do with the country when they're the president of what? No democracy. How's that going to work?
Well, it'll work the way it does in Russia right now.
Oh, terrific.
You turn it into an oligarchy. You get the big right-wing billionaire donors who put Donald Trump into office, who put Ronald Reagan into office, who put both George Bushes into office, and who own every single Republican senator and I think all but maybe a half a dozen of the Democratic members of the House or the Republican members of the House of Representatives. You will have those oligarchs pulling the strings, and they will get richer and continue to get richer and richer and richer, just like the oligarchs in the former Soviet states do, and in Russia.
So we get more
and
poverty.
You're going to have a strong man who's going to declare himself. Trump has already said he's going to declare himself president for life. He will do it. And if he doesn't do it, Tom Cotton will do it. I mean, if you want to see what it's going to look like, it's not a mystery. Look at Duterte in the Philippines. He's doing it right now. Look at Modi in India. He's preparing to do it. This is happening around the world. The Hidden History of Monopoly tells how Robert Bork, that guy from the Reagan era, transformed corporate America and destroyed the American dream. Hey, we have a special new video up for supporters of our program over at ThomHartmann.com. And it's about how FDR in 1944, in fact, January of 44, in his State of the Union address, talked about how important it was to add rights to the Bill of Rights. The original Bill of Rights was all political rights. He said it's time to enshrine economic rights in our Constitution. I would add, like most of the governments of Europe have done. And this includes the right to housing, the right to food, the right to a good job that pays well, the right to an education, including a college education, and the right to health care. It is pretty powerful stuff. And frankly, I think that what this coronavirus crisis is proving is that we are all in this together, and that Reagan's thing about government is never going to help you was just a load of crap. And so you can check it out over at ThomHartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Andy in Hoosick Falls, New York. Hey, Andy, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. Just wanted to give you a little story. I worked as a retail store manager for about a dozen years. There are always small businesses, 3 to 4 employees. We always paid about $3 an hour more on average than, say, the big box stores, retailers. And the big reason for it was loss prevention. We found that paying about $50 to $60 a day more for, say, 2 good quality employees saved us in product walking out of the store, either externally or internally. They were more in tune with keeping theft from walking out the store and internal theft. People who got resentful about their low-wage jobs, they would steal. And then the result was higher turnover, more costs to retrain, higher insurance costs. So my argument would always be that a $15 minimum wage is an actual cost savings. And
it
the
is.
reason
it actually is. I mean, and when you consider the cost to retrain, to train a new worker, that's substantial. I mean, the president of Costco, when he was testifying before Congress last week, pointed out that one of the reasons that, they're paying above the minimum wage and they pay benefits. And he said, one of the reasons for this is that we have, good employee retention. It costs money to train. It costs money to hire people. It costs money to vet them. It costs money to train them. And when they leave, it costs money to find the new replacement. All those are real costs.
Right. And so the argument, I've always seen this as a lobbying argument, because for a small business owner to pay maybe 2 or 3 people an extra $3 an hour is only going to cost them $50. But when you're talking major retailers with 10,000 employees, $3 an hour becomes a huge payroll problem to them. So this argument against the minimum wage is a lobbying effort from very large corporations who don't want to pay and raise their bottom line. Small business owners are perfectly willing to do it because they see the savings. They see it right away in loss prevention.
Yeah, I'm with you. Andy, thank you for the call. Ramesu in Birmingham, Alabama. Am I saying your name right?
Yes, you are. I was like,
you're on the air.
I'm such a fan of your show. The issue, I think, when it comes to raising minimum wage and just improving the overall financial health of the average working class person, a large portion of this country votes against their own best interests, especially in this Bible Belt region. I mean, they vote against, increasing the minimum wage. They vote against unionizing. That and the fact that so many counties...
Ramesu, do you think that that's because it's more important to them to stop abortions than it is to have a decent paycheck?
Well, the right wing, the Republican Party, they use abortion, but it's
guns,
but ultimately, I think it comes down in part to their whiteness. A lot of people
You're right.
in this region are poor. They don't. I mean, the economic boom has really just passed them over. They don't have anything. I mean, kind of like Barack Obama said, only thing they have left are their guns and their God or the Bible. So, they're being so brainwashed and used. I mean, when you vote against your own self-interest, I mean, they refuse to unionize in the South. It's just, it's.
Yep. No, I totally get it. And you said it very well. Thank you very much. Mike in Bailey, Colorado. Hey, Mike.
How's it going, Tom? Hey, during all these bailouts that we're doing, the COVID rescues that we're doing, no one's really dealing with the issue about the rent moratorium because these people are piling up tons of debt. What's happened in New York, I'm surprised hasn't happened already much sooner. In Albany, a landlord, about 4 days ago, kidnapped his 2 tenants to evict them, zip-tied their hands, threw a pillowcase over their head, threw them in a van, drove them miles away, and dropped them off in a cemetery. If that's not a warning to these people, I don't know what is. And through all of these COVID rescues, no one outside of like Cory Bush, Bernie's mentioned, the back rent piling up, but this is going to really blow up. And when you got BlackRock sitting there just waiting to swoop in on all these foreclosures of rental properties and people's homes, this is going to be devastating to our economy. And now you got a guy who's a guy who was probably a decent landlord at some time is so frustrated that he is willing to commit felonies that's going to lock him up for years.
No, I get it, Mike. I get it, Mike. And I agree with you. I think just like the student debt thing has created a disaster, this housing thing is going to be even bigger and faster.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
We say fight back!
Free Speech TV needs you. Seriously. Free Speech TV, 4 times a year we do this fundraising drive for Free Speech TV to keep the network on the air, and we need your help. One of the things that you can do to help is help us get the word out about Free Speech TV. Tell your friends about it, talk about it on social media, talk about it on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever realm you may be. Take your favorite segments from Free Speech TV. They put little clips up on social media. You could retweet those, or share those, or like those. You can initiate your own. Let's try to increase the number of people who are watching this television network and this program, and just do it ourselves, right? I mean, who better than you and I, who know the quality of this network, than you and I who know the really extraordinary value of this network. And while we're at that, I mean, if you can't afford to make any kind of contribution at all, I get it. But most people watching Free Speech TV could afford $15, $25, $50, could afford $10 a month. I realize that, there are some people in great distress. If you're one of them, just share the word. That doesn't cost anything. And tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your relatives. But if you can't afford to help, Free Speech TV needs your help right now. We need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this show going here on Free Speech TV. And it all depends on whether you pick up the phone and call 877-378-8669 now or not. It's up to you. How much is Free Speech TV worth to you? What kind of value do you get from Free Speech TV? Is it worth as much as, having a cup of coffee every week? Is it worth as much as going to see the shrink every month? Is it, so the cup of coffee might be $10 a week. Seeing the shrink might be $100 or $200 a month. Is it worth, Free Speech TV part of your mental health program? Is it part of your political awareness program? Is it worth, what you may pay to subscribe to an online newspaper like the New York Times or the Washington Post? What's it worth to you? Can you please call now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution of that amount to Free Speech TV? Or make a monthly contribution? which is the very best. Become a member of the Sustainers Circle and help Free Speech TV know what the baseline that they have for their budget is. Can you do that now, please? 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Free Speech TV offers an extraordinary spectrum of programs with a variety of different kinds of diversity and viewpoints. And the grounding of Free Speech TV, the thing that's at the foundation of all of it, is truth. You will not see a program on Free Speech TV where you can fact check it and find that they're lying to you. You can't. Now, you've got websites like MediaMatters.org that literally fact check Fox News every single day. Fox News and people on Fox News are literally telling lies. And you and I know this. And on Right Wing Hate Radio and a lot of the websites out there, a lot of the right-wing websites. But you can't find those errors on Free Speech TV. And I'll tell you from personal experience, the rare occasions when I get something wrong, and I'm not bragging on how I'm always right. I'm telling you that I put in the work to make sure if I'm saying something, I can back it up. But on the rare occasions when I get something wrong, people do reach out to me to correct it, and I correct it on the air. Because I want you to know that you can trust what I have to say. And I am not speaking just for myself. I know that every person on this network, or at least every person on this network that I personally know, and that's probably at least half of the people who have a program on Free Speech TV, feel the same way. They want you to know, they want it to be real, that their program is truthful. So if truth is important to you, call now. With a $20 gift, there's 2 premiums available to you, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack, just in time for spring. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or a new tote bag, a new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, same design as before. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote, and the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or an autographed copy of my latest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. With a $240 gift, you can join one of our virtual meet and greets, or you can get both the Monopoly book, The Hidden History of Monopoly, and The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author. That would be me. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, our bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the Oligarchy book. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and we'll hang out. Right? So those are the premiums. But the real thing that you get when you contribute to Free Speech TV by calling 877-378-8669 right now, the real important thing that you get is the programming. You get the truth. You get information that you can use and you can share, things that you can learn that grow your life. So call now, please. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I'd like to add another dimension to our conversation. We can continue talking about the minimum wage, although, as I said earlier, in the second half of my rant in the first hour, I really see this battle for the minimum wage not exclusively as being about lifting 27 million people out of poverty, giving 33 million people who work for the minimum wage a raise. I see this, it's not just that moral issue. It's not just the issue that big corporations and small companies are being subsidized by your tax dollars and mine because their minimum wage workers are so poor because they're only working for the minimum wage that they qualify for food stamps and housing assistance and Medicaid, things that they might be able to pay for themselves if they got a raise to $15 an hour. I'm not making, although that's a legitimate argument, I don't think that's the biggest argument either. I think the biggest argument is that if the Democratic Party can't get something friggin' simple like a minimum wage increase done, then Americans are going to give up on the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has to accomplish things. Now, the Republican Party for 40 years, since the beginning of austerity economics, of neoliberal economics, of what we refer to as Reagan economics or trickle-down economics, the Republican Party for 40 years has essentially refused to do anything for the American people, particularly American working people, and in fact actively worked against their interests. They have raised taxes on working people repeatedly. Reagan did it 18 times. He doubled the payroll tax. George W. Bush did it. George Herbert Walker Bush did it. All of them, and Donald Trump did it. In fact, your taxes are going up this year. If you make less than $75,000 a year, your taxes will go up this year. They will go up next year. They will go up the year after. They will go up every single year for the next 9 years, because that was built into Donald Trump's tax break for billionaires in order to keep the overall price tag below $1.5 trillion. They looked at this over a decade rather than just a one-year period when they were scoring the bill. And so, Republicans have consistently raised taxes on working people while lowering taxes on billionaires and corporations. Corporations are now paying 21% income tax. They were paying 33% income tax under Obama. 35% on income tax under Obama, 35% under Bush, 35% under Clinton, 35% under H.W. Bush, 34% under Reagan, 46% under Carter. This was the corporate income tax. 46% under Carter, 48% under Jerry Ford, 48% under Richard Nixon. Now, again, corporations only pay this tax when they show a profit. And it is a progressive tax. It's a graduated tax. So as their profits go up, their tax brackets go up until they eventually hit this top bracket. Under Nixon, it was 48% for corporations. Under Johnson, LBJ, it was 52%. Under JFK, it was 52%. Under Eisenhower, it was 52%. In fact, during the Eisenhower administration, corporations paying income taxes accounted for 1/3 of all federal government income. Now it's 6%. So the GOP has done everything they can to help these big corporations, and they have absolutely screwed working people in America. And the only things they can point to where they can say, hey, we're here for you, is really what they're saying is, we're here for you, white people. We have suppressed, the Republicans are saying, the black vote. We have suppressed the elderly vote. We have suppressed the young vote. We have made it harder for women to get abortions. In fact, in some states, there aren't even abortion providers any longer. We have made it easier for people to get guns. We, the Republican Party, have brought you an epidemic of school shootings. But, the Small Penis Gun Club is real happy with that. All the things that the Republicans claim that they have done for us. We have given you more liberty. You no longer have to submit to government health insurance. Now you can just die with no health insurance. I mean, I literally, on this program, for the, 18 years that I've been doing this show, I have had this contest. Anybody who can name one policy proposed by Republicans, introduced into both houses of Congress by Republicans, by majority of Republicans, and signed into law by a Republican president, one policy since 1980, in the last 40 years, that principally benefits the American working class, I will send you an autographed copy of whatever one of my books you want. And some of them are actually collector's items. Some of the first editions. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. The Republican Party has done nothing except on the so-called social issues. They've made it easier for fanatic right-wing white Protestant evangelicals to say no to gay couples, we will not bake a cake for your wedding. These are their big accomplishments. So, I think I did a reasonable job of making that argument in the first hour. Here in this second hour, I'd like to expand on this. I'd like to make a second argument. And that is that I am of the opinion that it is time to put the Republican Party in general, certainly the leadership of the Republican Party, on the terror watch list. No American political party should ever have terrorists within its ranks. Now, the simple fact of the matter is that American political parties have always had terrorists within their ranks. Both parties, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, the Federalists, the Democratic Republicans, the Whigs and the Federalists, the Democratic Party, the Democratic Republican Party, and the Whigs, all the way up until 1865, particularly in the South, had slave owners in their party, terrorists. Post-Civil War, from 1865 until 1965, for 100 years, the Democratic Party welcomed terrorists into its ranks. We had the Klan. The Klan is a domestic terror organization. They exist to terrorize black people. And you had Klan members, Klan grand wizards elevated to the United States Senate. You had one from West Virginia, Robert Byrd. Now he changed his stripes and he apologized and started trying to make up for it later in his life. But hey, you had a grand dragon for the Klan in Congress. So the Democratic Party prior to the 60s welcomed terrorists into its ranks. Now, after Lyndon Johnson's presidency, after the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Democratic Party largely purged itself of terrorists. And the Republican Party, Richard Nixon came in 68 with his so-called Southern strategy and said, hey, you guys, come on over. Donald Trump stepped up on a Nazi rune-themed stage in Florida this weekend. Did you catch this? That same Nazi rune that was carried into the Capitol by some of Trump's followers. Now, a few Republicans like Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney have actually openly called out Trump's lurch toward terrorism and fascism. Even Mitch McConnell tried to, although now he's, as you often see in countries that are making the rapid transition to fascism, he backslid on that. I want to dig into this a little deeper on the other side of this break, so stick around because there's more to this rant. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Is it time to start treating the GOP like a terrorist organization, or at least a terrorist-embracing organization? I think so. And welcome back. Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's up?
Yeah, I would agree with you, but going back to the $15 an hour, I'm all for it. I want to preface things by that. This is what I'm afraid of. You know what Joe Lieberman did 2 decades ago? He quit the Democratic Party, became an independent, and he caucused with the Republicans, which I believe at that time cost the Democrats the majority, and gave Lott the Senate majority leadership. And I'm afraid Manchin might do the same thing over the $15 an hour situation. I don't know what you think about that.
Let's be clear, Dennis. Hang on just a second. Joe Lieberman did not leave the party over an issue. Joe Lieberman left the party because he had a primary challenger who looked like was going to beat him. And in fact, was going to beat him. My recollection is it was Ned Lamont. I might be wrong. But he had a primary challenger who was probably going to beat him. So at that point, he said, screw it. I'm not even going to fight in this primary. I'm going to run as an independent. He declared that during the primary, as I recall. And thus, he was in a three-way race with a Democrat, a Republican, and Joe Lieberman, and people simply went with the name that had name recognition. We are way far away. I mean, if my recollection is correct, Joe Manchin is not up for re-election in at least 4 years and maybe even 5. And so the probability of Joe Manchin facing a primary challenge is in the foggy, distant future that is far removed from today. So I'm just not concerned about that.
Okay, I was wondering because, that sticks in my mind because that Lieberman did eventually, become an independent and he caucused with the Republicans after being a Democrat for so many years.
Oh, he spoke at the RNC.
Yeah, exactly. So, Manchin, if he wants to be a real stick in the mud, I guess he could leverage things like that. I would hope he wouldn't. Like you said, he doesn't have a vote coming up for quite a few years. The other thing, though, is you do have a couple of senators on the Republican side that said they'd be willing to have a, maybe an 11 or a 10 or an $11 an hour raise minimum wage, which isn't enough. But if there's some way you could go to that in a year or two, and then after that to 15 a few years later, I believe Biden's trying to work something out like that now. But the time's running short. 2 weeks from now is the 14th. And if they want to get this bill done quickly, they're either going to have to try to get the $15 an hour in there, go reconciliation, hope that Manchin doesn't become a jerk, because he's been a jerk, or Kristen Sinema for that matter, and get this bill passed. Because I think with or without the $15 an hour minimum wage, it's desperately needed by the majority of Americans. And
absolutely,
if
it still puts the minimum wage below where it was in '68.
Yeah, here's the other thing: tie the $15 an hour to the defense budget.
Yeah. Well, then though, you have an incentive to increase the defense budget. I think tying it to congressional salaries actually might be, or tying congressional salaries to the minimum wage might be the way to do it. But there's lots of opportunities or options. Dennis, thanks for the call. Great stuff. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. The hidden history of the war on voting tells how the GOP has been stealing elections for decades and will again this year unless we stop them. So we need to be thinking right now about how to Trump-proof the presidency in the future. I mean, Donald Trump is causing all kinds of chaos and disasters, and things are, frankly, I think, going to get much worse before they get better. And I don't think they're going to get better until after January 21st or January, noon on January 20th. And that's assuming that, absolute craziness doesn't happen. But, there's a bunch of steps that we need to take, from recalibrating or fixing how we do our elections, to fixing how we handle money in politics, to fixing the pardon power of the presidency, to specifically saying that if a president is found to be a criminal, he or she can still be held to account. I mean, just straightforward stuff. And we need to be getting ready to do this. I lay it all out in a new video for people who support our program that you can find over at thomhartmann.com. I left off. We now have the few, I mentioned that a couple of Republicans have called out Donald Trump. Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, even Mitch McConnell tried for a day, a couple of them for a day. Kevin McCarthy for one day called him out, but now, Kevin McCarthy went down to Florida to kiss Trump's ass. But now we have elected Republican officials, and we saw this weekend at CPAC, actually promoting Donald Trump's big lie. Now, when I say big lie, it's really important to put that phrase in context. in the early 1920s, I think it was 1923, I may be off by 1 year, Adolf Hitler walked into a beer hall in Germany, jumped up on a table, fired a shot from a gun into the ceiling, which got everyone's attention and quieted the beer hall. There were a couple hundred people in there. This was in Munich. And gave a 30-minute speech in which he claimed that he was a World War I veteran, which was true, that he was wounded and injured in World War I, which was true. He got poison gas and he ended up in the hospital as a result of this. That he was a wounded war veteran from World War I, and that he had personal knowledge. Now, this was the lie. He had personal knowledge from having been on the front lines that Germany was on the verge of winning World War I. And a group of people who included representatives from labor unions, who included members of the Socialist Party, and who were Jewish, went to negotiate the end of World War I, and that part was true. There were such people in the negotiating party, went to negotiate the end of World War I, but they were, just among others, right? And stabbed Germany in the back by prematurely ending the war before Germany could win it. That was the lie. The fact of the matter was, at the time the negotiations to end World War I began, Germany was pathetically losing. Germany was experiencing famines. Germany was on the verge of absolute and utter collapse. And, most Germans knew this. But Adolf Hitler, it had been 5 years after the end of the war, and Adolf Hitler was selling his lie. And he got these people so cranked up in that beer hall that he marched them down to the capital of Bavaria, which was the Capitol building in Munich. Bavaria's a state in Germany. Marched them down to the capital of Bavaria and tried to seize the parliament. Stormed the Capitol building, just like happened here on January 6th. They arrested him. They put him in prison. And during the months that he was in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, again stating his big lie that Germany had been sold out by Jews and socialists. And when he got out of prison, they thought, okay, well, that's the end of that. There's a 1924 New York Times article floating around, saying Hitler is chastened. But no, he promoted that big lie, and that big lie that Jews and socialists sold out the German people at the end of World War I, that became the animating cry, the war cry of the Nazi Party throughout the 1920s and into the early 1930s. And then when the Parliament building was on fire, the Reichstag building was on fire, and as I recall, February of 1933, Hitler ran over there while the building was still on fire, got in front of a radio microphone and said, "See, the same people are burning our Parliament building that stabbed us in the back." And within a week, he was the Chancellor of Germany. That big lie a similar big lie that Donald Trump actually won the election was being promoted at CPAC this weekend by elected Republican politicians. We are seeing the exact same scenario play out. It's almost as if Donald Trump read Hitler's playbook, which of course his wife Ivana said Trump had Hitler's collected speeches next to his bed throughout most of their marriage. Meanwhile, now you've got Republicans in more than 40 states who have introduced over 300 pieces of legislation to suppress the vote of poor people in the United States, principally black people, but basically poor people and young people, making it really, really hard for college students to vote. And they are openly promoting white supremacy. The The last time we had a white supremacist group seize political control of about half of America was 1861. 600,000 Americans died, and we fought a civil war to stop these people.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's time to put the GOP on the terrorist watch list. What say you? Free Speech TV needs you. Seriously. Free Speech TV, 4 times a year, we do this fundraising drive for Free Speech TV to keep the network on the air, and we need your help. One of the things that you can do to help is help us get the word out about Free Speech TV. Tell your friends about it, talk about it on social media, talk about it on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever realm you may be. Take your favorite segments from Free Speech TV. They put little clips up on social media. You could retweet those, or share those, or like those. You can initiate your own. Let's try to increase the number of people who are watching this television network and this program, and just do it ourselves, right? I mean, who better than you and I, who know the quality of this network, than you and I who know the really extraordinary value of this network. And while we're at that, I mean, if you can't afford to make any kind of contribution at all, I get it. But most people watching Free Speech TV could afford $15, $25, $50, could afford $10 a month. I realize that, there are some people in great distress. If you're one of them, just share the word. That doesn't cost anything. And tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your relatives. But if you can't afford to help, Free Speech TV needs your help right now. We need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this show going here on Free Speech TV. And it all depends on whether you pick up the phone and call 877-378-8669 now or not. It's up to you. How much is Free Speech TV worth to you? What kind of value do you get from Free Speech TV? Is it worth as much as, having a cup of coffee every week? Is it worth as much as going to see the shrink every month? Is it, so the cup of coffee might be $10 a week. Seeing the shrink might be $100 or $200 a month. Is it worth, Free Speech TV part of your mental health program? Is it part of your political awareness program? Is it worth, what you may pay to subscribe to an online newspaper like the New York Times or the Washington Post? What's it worth to you? Can you please call now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution of that amount to Free Speech TV? Or make a monthly contribution, which is the very best. Become a member of the Sustainers Circle and help Free Speech TV know what the baseline that they have for their budget is. Can you do that now, please? 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Free Speech TV offers an extraordinary spectrum of programs with a variety of different kinds of diversity and viewpoints. And the grounding of Free Speech TV, the thing that's at the foundation of all of it, is truth. You will not see a program on Free Speech TV where you can fact check it and find that they're lying to you. You can't. Now, you've got websites like MediaMatters.org that literally fact check Fox News every single day. Fox News and people on Fox News are literally telling lies. And you and I know this, and on Right-Wing Hate Radio and a lot of the websites out there, a lot of the right-wing websites. But you can't find those errors on Free Speech TV. And I'll tell you from personal experience, the rare occasions when I get something wrong, and I'm not bragging on how I'm always right, I'm telling you that I put in the work to make sure if I'm saying something, I can back it up. But on the rare occasions when I get something wrong, people do reach out to me to correct it, and I correct it on the air. Because I want you to know that you can trust what I have to say. And I am not speaking just for myself. I know that every person on this network, or at least every person on this network that I personally know, and that's probably at least half of the people who have a program on Free Speech TV, feel the same way. They want you to know, they want it to be real, that their program is truthful. So if truth is important to you, call now. With a $20 gift, there's 2 premiums available to you, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack, just in time for spring. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or a new tote bag, a new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, same design as before. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote, and the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or an autographed copy of my latest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. With a $240 gift, you can join one of our virtual meet and greets, or you can get both the Monopoly book, The Hidden History of Monopoly, and The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author. That would be me. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, our bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the Oligarchy book. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and we'll hang out. All right, so those are the premiums. But the real thing that you get when you contribute to Free Speech TV by calling 877-378-8669 right now, the real important thing that you get is the programming. You get the truth. You get information that you can use and you can share, things that you can learn that grow your life. So call now, please. Thank you. On the Science Revolution this week, Nick Dearden is here with Global Justice Now. Should America have a people's vaccine? Nick is calling for an immediate suspension of patents on COVID-19 vaccines and an international plan to ramp up production as rapidly as possible. Barry C. Lynn from Open Markets Institute drops by on how monopolies have created a crisis in the food industries. Zach Corrigan is here from Food and Water Justice on how pork slaughter plants with self-inspection rules are not working well and endangering our health. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are available. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. By the way, my rant about adding the Republican Party to the Domestic Terrorism Watchlist, I published over at thomhartmann.medium.com yesterday. And the piece that I started the show with today, I published there today. I'm publishing all my original stuff over there now first, in large part because it allows me to edit at any time. I have complete control over my own work. It's not like, I used to have to submit it through a group. That group would then edit it. Then they would submit it to online publications. If there was an error in it or I wanted to change something or add something, I had to go through all kinds of hoops, and usually it couldn't even be done, and it was just a total pain in the ass. And on this platform, on Medium.com, I can publish my own stuff. I can edit it. I can clean it up. I can add to it. I just added to an article I wrote 2 weeks ago, in fact, that's on Medium.com. Now, Medium has no advertising. They're not advertising supported. They are supported by people who read them. It's $5 a month, $4.99 a month. If you can't afford that, we reprint my Medium articles on my blog over at thomhartmann.com every single day, just a few hours after they're put on Medium. So if you want to read them for free, you can still read them on our website. So this isn't like, I'm trying to push everybody into something that's going to, make some money that might get shared with me or something like that. It's just, I think that Substack, which is what David Sirota uses, and a number of other, people who've been on this program, Matt Taibbi, they're using Substack. I'm using Medium. There are other people using Medium. These are the two new non-advertising supported platforms. And I've been saying this for a long time. I think that, for example, Facebook is, spying on us like crazy and using our information to sell advertising. Well, if Facebook was not based on an advertising model, if Facebook charged $5 a month to participate in, then they wouldn't have to spy on us, or they wouldn't think that they would have to spy on us. So and I realize that there's a certain kind of elitism to that because not everybody could afford $5 a month for Facebook. And maybe there would be an advertising supported part and a paid part, and you could simply pay not to get the ads. That's what I do with Raw Story and Alternet. Raw Story and Alternet are both advertising supported websites, and yet they have an option where you can pay them $10 a month, I think it is, or whatever. Maybe it's a little less than that, and get both of them with no ads, which I do. Other people can't afford to do, so they put up with the ads. That seems a little more egalitarian, but just so you know, because I've had people say, well, why are you writing over a Medium? What happened to your stuff that was showing up on Raw Story and things? And I have said, in fact, Consortium News just picked up one of my pieces from Medium, and Common Dreams has picked up some of my stuff from Medium. I've made it clear to all the other progressive websites that I've traditionally published with, Raw Story, Alternet, Common Dreams, Consortium News, LA Progressive, etc., that if you want to simply pick up my stuff from Medium, no problem. Just do it. So anyway, that's, in response to all that. But let's talk about the issues that I've been writing about over the weekend, because I'm doing these 7 days a week now. Chaz in Lakewood, Washington. Hey, Chaz, what's on your mind?
Ni hao, Peng Yu. It's a great day to be a citizen of the world, is it not?
Yao Ping Yu. Is that greetings in Chinese?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Tom,
Ni hao.
Ni hao. May I impose upon you to be the Greek response chorus to my queries?
Okay.
America's junior enlisted sometimes has to resort to welfare, but what is the only political party in the world that wants to cancel welfare, Tom?
The Republicans.
And our DOD now declares white supremacy to be a national security threat. What is the only political party in the world that denies white supremacy exists, Tom?
I believe the Republicans. There are white supremacist parties in Europe, like Marine Le Pen's party, but I don't think that I think they're rather proud of their white supremacy, so I'm not sure they deny it exists.
The DOD also declares that climate change is a national security threat. What is the only political party in the world that denies that climate change exists, Tom?
The Republican Party.
You know, Tom, there's only one reason the GOP doesn't want the $15 minimum wage, because it would create an era of prosperity that would certify they are obsolete, and that terrifies them.
I agree. I think that the main reason why the Republican Party is opposing a $15 minimum wage is because they know that it will create a booming economy and the Democrats will get the credit for it. And they don't want that to happen. It's just that simple. I think that is probably 70% of the equation that they're putting into this, and I should have included that in my opening rant in the first hour. Thank you for pointing it out and reminding me of that, Chaz. I appreciate it. It's always nice to hear from you. Jeff in Denver. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I know you've moved on a little bit, but I'm hoping I could provide you an extra tool in your arguments. I kind of started listening when you were debating that gentleman earlier about the minimum wage.
Patrick Hedger. Yeah.
And one thing that seems to be always glossed over is that they tell the economic story that in perfect mobility, perfect knowledge, in perfect rational behavior, in a perfect free market, then the natural wage of everybody would be able to achieve. However, there's a problem here. There has never been a perfectly free market on the world ever. We've come close conceptually, but there is no such thing. So we put, like you've argued over the years, we put rules in place to make sure that the football field is balanced for everybody. And they always seem to gloss over that people aren't being rational, that there aren't, they are tied to geography. They are tied to some other decisions sometimes that people can't be rational. So we put in minimum wage so it overcomes the imperfectness of the market.
Yeah, and to your point, Jeff, there is one historic marketplace that is close to that perfect marketplace where everybody knows exactly what everybody else is making. Everybody knows the exact amount of work that goes into a product. Everybody knows the exact value of things. And everybody has some medium of exchange. And that is barter within a tribe, a small tribal unit. And that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah, and I'm getting some
even
funny
then I would
feedback.
argue
Jeff.
there, there could be irrationality within there. People are not perfectly rational things always.
Yeah. Well said. Jeff, thank you very much for the call. Daniel in Denver. Hey, Daniel, what's up?
Hello, Tom. I just wanted to get your thoughts or comments.
Daniel, I need you to get your mouth a whole lot closer to the microphone. It sounds like you're talking to me from the can. Okay, I'm going to put Daniel on hold. Daniel's on line 4. Joyce, if you want to check in with him. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, not too much, Tom. This is in reference to you saying that, you thought the Republican Party should be labeled a domestic terror organization. And I agree. And I just want to get your feedback on something if you have it. Trump, during his CPAC, his CPAC speech, he mentioned that Liz Cheney, everyone on his enemies list, the Republicans, right. He mentioned that they are warmongers. Now, I found this interesting. Of all the criticism he gave of the Biden administration and of the Democratic Party, he never labeled them warmongers. And I believe that it got me thinking. I think the glue that holds all this together, the Trumpism, and really, frankly, the whole Republican Party, until I see otherwise, correct me if you see it differently. The glue that holds all this together is what this one female correspondent said. She said of the Trump speech, she has never seen so much toxic masculinity on display as she did when Trump was speaking. And I don't know, but here's my so what. I don't know how to correct that. And if we don't correct that, I think Trump and his organization, no matter how much they claim to be, peaceful and non-interventionist, I think it's a big lie. I think they covet that. I think they cherish that. That's why they don't want to call the Biden administration warmongers. Let
me add to that, Dave. Yeah, I absolutely do. This started in the 1970s with the women's movement, arguably in the 60s, but birth control pill was legalized in 61. Having birth control in your home, which used to be a felony, a crime in some states, was decriminalized in 1965 in the Griswold v. Connecticut Supreme Court case. And so toward the late 60s and early 70s, as women gained, for the first time in human history, absolute control over their reproductive cycles, they started demanding equality in the workplace and other forms of social and political equality. Keep in mind, at that point in time, women had only had the vote for 40 years, 2 generations. And as women became more prominent in the workplace, and as they started working their way up the economic and corporate power ladder, they started becoming bosses to men. Male insecurity started exploding. And that, in my opinion, has been feeding this toxic masculinity in the Republican Party ever since the 70s. It has been their rallying cry. I think it's one of the primary things behind their whole anti-abortion stance, as a matter of fact. And I don't have an easy solution for it, Dave, other than just time. Dave, thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
These men are going to have to learn to share. It just comes right down to that. We're all in this together. Come on, we can get along, to paraphrase Rodney King. And welcome back. Richard in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Hey, Richard, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I was wondering, you were talking about Joe Manchin earlier. Why would a Democratic senator from one of the poorest states in the union be opposed to the minimum wage, or raising the minimum wage?
I would submit that the principal reason is because the largest donors to his campaign are opposed to it.
But they only account for one vote each. I mean, if he voted to raise minimum wage, he'd have a lot of the poor people voting for him when he ran again.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Richard. It doesn't make any sense. Why would a guy who represents the poorest state in the union be opposed to raising the minimum wage? You could argue, you could make the argument that there are a lot of small businesses in West Virginia, that the cost of living in West Virginia is fairly low, particularly outside the cities. It's very low, in fact. And in fact, my editor on these hidden history books, Troy Miller, lives in West Virginia. So I hear a lot of West Virginia stories, and I've been there, more than a few times. Another friend of mine lives there as well. And therefore, some of these small businesses, which are doing business on the cheap, can't afford the extra money that the minimum wage would cost them. I would get that if we were talking a $20 or $25 minimum wage, but a $15 minimum wage takes a person to $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year is, I get it that $40,000 a year is the national, median individual income. Household income is higher than that, but it's the national median or average. I realize median and average are different, but more or less.
Yeah, I think West Virginia is like 43,000.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll trust your numbers, Richard. So what that probably, if West Virginia's median income is 43,000, that means that you've got people who are making 15,000, which is $7 an hour, and you've got people who are making 70,000 or 80,000, and and you're hitting that middle point at 43. It may be that there are enough small businesses in West Virginia who are freaked out about having to pay it, but I doubt it. I really seriously doubt it. I think this is the large employers in West Virginia, and not just West Virginia, around the country, who are reaching out to politicians who are amenable to cutting deals with lobbyists, essentially. It would be fascinating if Joe Manchin would give a clear and honest answer to his opposition to a $15 minimum wage. I'm guessing what he would say, and maybe he's already said it. I haven't been carefully attending to his proclamations. But I'm guessing he would say, I want to protect the small businesses of West Virginia, which on its face is not an unreasonable position. But I still continue to believe that having people work a full-time job and live in poverty at $15,000 a year is untenable even in West Virginia. It's a morally indefensible position. And an economically indefensible one as well. But Richard, I honestly don't know. Richard, thank you for the call. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Astonishing news out of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that has to do with the lifespan of Americans. Since World War II, the average lifespan of American men and women have continuously increased, all the way up to 78.8 years in 2019. Continuous increase. Things were getting better, more and more people were getting health care, we were making medical technology advances, there was a rather dramatic decline in smoking between the 1990s and the 2010s. All kinds of things were working together. And then came Donald Trump's response to COVID-19. Causing America, with 4% of the world's population, to have 20% of the world's deaths. The result of that has been extraordinary. For the first time since World War II, American life expectancy has declined. It's all over in a new video for supporters of our program over at ThomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, 51 minutes past the hour, as they say in the radio business. Dirk in Chicago. Hey, Dirk, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I just want to get quick to my point regarding COVID-19 and mass evictions. As we move forward and get into the mass evictions of people who are so far behind on their rent, these people are going to be left with two options: either joining the homeless society, either on the streets or in homeless shelters, or moving in with family members. They're going to be doing so during the time of a pandemic, which is the opposite of what the CDC is looking for right now, additional people in congregate settings. And I believe that that's...
Well, they're trying to move this back to June, Dirk. And hopefully by June, everybody will be vaccinated. But your point is still valid. I mean, just during the pandemic part.
Tom, if I may, if these people can't afford their rent, there's a good chance that they don't have access to health insurance, and there's also a good chance they don't have reliable internet access, which makes it even more difficult for them to access vaccines and vaccine program sites. So I just see it coming to a head very soon. And I just want to get your take on that.
I think you're right. We've seen a slow motion version of this with student debt. The Reagan administration, Ronald Reagan tried to do to America what he did to California. California used to have the best state college system in the United States, and it was completely free. It was completely free for a long, long time. Abraham Lincoln created 54, as I recall, land-grant colleges across the United States. Michigan State University was one of them. And the whole point was they had enough land that they could work that land or use that land to produce enough money that they could provide free tuition to students. MSU was free or damn near free for, close to 100 years. And California had one of these great systems that was started in part as a land-grant college. But they turned it into a statewide university system. And when Reagan was governor, he said, why should I be paying for the tuition of kids who are protesting my policies? He actually called them brats. And so he blew up the free tuition in California. He got into the White House and he started the same process at the federal level. And as a consequence of that, over the last 40 years, really the last 30 years, because it took most of the 8 years that Reagan was in power to get this into policy and law in state after state after state. We now have $1.5 trillion worth of student debt. The result of that is not like an immediate explosive result. Instead, it's this long-term gradual clotting up of the ability of the millennial generation to start their lives. They're postponing marriage and child bearing by an average of 8 years. They're postponing home purchases by an average of 9 years. We're seeing, they're paralyzed. They're starting businesses at one of the lowest rates in American history because they simply can't get out from underneath that student debt. So that's a slow move. That's kind of the iceberg motion. It took a 30-year period since Reagan really started this process to cripple an entire, really 2 generations of young people. The Gen X and Zs and the millennials. Now with these mass evictions, now we've got a coronavirus that's done in 1 year because of the way Donald Trump responded to it. Keep in mind, South Korea got their first virus confirmed on what was it, March 20th, as I recall, or maybe it was their first death, the same day the United States did. And they have had fewer than 24 people die in South Korea in all that time. They had nobody die as of 2 months ago. They've had a couple of people since then. Now they're starting to get the more contagious variants there. But it's because they responded to it. Here in the United States, though, we have 500,000 dead people. So Donald Trump's response to this COVID crisis, this totally screwed up response that really went on steroids after April 7th when the Trump administration realized that COVID was hitting black and brown people the hardest, and it was happening primarily in blue states, and decided to completely abandon any efforts to do anything about this pandemic. That response has caused so many people to lose their jobs. It has done so much damage to our economy that we have tens of millions of people who are behind, not just in their rent, but also in their mortgages. And we've provided them with temporary relief. Sometimes it's acknowledged, sometimes it's not. The enforcement of this has varied from state to state. It's a lot of it is going to run out this month unless Congress gets in the act, and it looks like they're going to extend it until June. But come June, if it does get extended, come June, you're going to have people who have 1.5 years worth of rent or 1.5 years worth of mortgage payments that they owe. And not only that, in many states, There will be large piles of interest on top of that. And those people are going to be walking away from those houses. You're going to see a massive explosion of foreclosures. You're going to see a massive explosion of housing coming onto the market, which is going to depress the housing market, which could create a mini or even a major recession. And you're going to see an explosion in homelessness. Dirk, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. The Republican policies that brought us the student debt crisis and an entire, essentially enslaved by debt generation now are also bringing us a housing crisis that's going to blow up in the face of the Biden administration sometime this summer. Look out.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Thom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Thom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Thom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Thom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Thom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Thom.
Redstates fight back!
Free Speech TV needs you. Seriously. Free Speech TV, 4 times a year we do this fundraising drive for Free Speech TV to keep the network on the air, and we need your help. One of the things that you can do to help is help us get the word out about Free Speech TV. Tell your friends about it, talk about it on social media, talk about it on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever realm you may be. Take your favorite segments from Free Speech TV. They put little clips up on social media. You could retweet those, or share those, or like those. You can initiate your own. Let's try to increase the number of people who are watching this television network and this program, and just do it ourselves, right? I mean, who better than you and I, who know the quality of this network, than you and I who know the really extraordinary value of this network. And while we're at that, I mean, if you can't afford to make any kind of contribution at all, I get it. But most people watching Free Speech TV could afford $15, $25, $50, could afford $10 a month. I realize that, there are some people in great distress. If you're one of them, just share the word. That doesn't cost anything. And tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your relatives. But if you can't afford to help, Free Speech TV needs your help right now. We need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this show going here on Free Speech TV. And it all depends on whether you pick up the phone and call 877-378-8669 now or not. It's up to you. How much is Free Speech TV worth to you? What kind of value do you get from Free Speech TV? Is it worth as much as, having a cup of coffee every week? Is it worth as much as going to see the shrink every month? Is it, so the cup of coffee might be $10 a week. Seeing the shrink might be $100 or $200 a month. Is it worth, Free Speech TV part of your mental health program? Is it part of your political awareness program? Is it worth, what you may pay to subscribe to an online newspaper like the New York Times or the Washington Post? What's it worth to you? Can you please call now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution of that amount to Free Speech TV? Or make a monthly contribution, which is the very best. Become a member of the Sustainers Circle and help Free Speech TV know what the baseline that they have for their budget is. Can you do that now, please? 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Free Speech TV offers an extraordinary spectrum of programs with a variety of different kinds of diversity and viewpoints. And the grounding of Free Speech TV, the thing that's at the foundation of all of it, is truth. You will not see a program on Free Speech TV where you can fact check it and find that they are lying to you. You can't. Now, you've got websites like MediaMatters.org that literally fact check Fox News every single day. Fox News and people on Fox News are literally telling lies. And you and I know this, and on Right Wing Hate Radio and a lot of the websites out there, a lot of the right-wing websites. But you can't find those errors on Free Speech TV. And I'll tell you from personal experience, the rare occasions when I get something wrong, and I'm not bragging on how I'm always right, I'm telling you that I put in the work to make sure if I'm saying something I can back it up. But on the rare occasions when I get something wrong, people do reach out to me to correct it. And I correct it on the air. Because I want you to know that you can trust what I have to say. And I am not speaking just for myself. I know that every person on this network, or at least every person on this network that I personally know, and that's probably at least half of the people who have a program on Free Speech TV, feel the same way. They want you to know, they want it to be real, that their program is truthful. So if truth is important to you, call now. With a $20 gift, there's 2 premiums available to you, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack, just in time for spring. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or a new tote bag, a new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, same design as before. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote, and the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or an autographed copy of my latest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. With a $240 gift, you can join one of our virtual meet and greets, or you can get both the Monopoly book, The Hidden History of Monopoly, and The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author. That would be me. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, our bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the Oligarchy book. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and we'll hang out. All right, so those are the premiums. But the real thing that you get when you contribute to Free Speech TV by calling 877-378-8669 right now, the real important thing that you get is the programming. You get the truth. You get information that you can use and you can share, things that you can learn that grow your life. So call now, please. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So I wanted to open a conversation about COVID and the environment and humanity and this whole kind of thing about how the real story of the COVID catastrophe is actually larger than you know. It's larger than you think. Our planet is basically screaming a message at us. And COVID is part of that communication. But we think of it as this separate thing. Oh my God, there's COVID. There's this virus. It came from China. Trump is calling it the China virus, which is, causing an explosion in anti-Asian hate crimes across the United States. But that's the story, right? But in fact, the death of nature and the appearance of the COVID virus are literally all part of the same thing. I mean, I'll never forget, I think it was 10, 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, on this program, a long-haul trucker who was listening to us on Sirius XM was driving across the country, was driving through the lower Midwest. As I recall, he was driving through Tennessee, or in that area, Tennessee, southern Indiana, whatever it may have been. And he said, I drive every year, a couple times every year from the southeastern United States all the way up to the Pacific Northwest. I didn't ask what he was hauling. It might have been logs for paper mills. Who knows? But he said, used to be when I was driving through these southern parts of the Midwest, I'd have to stop every few hours and clean the bugs off my windshield. He said, it's been 3 days now since I've had to clean the bugs off my windshield. Something spooky is going on out here. And I still remember that day because for me it was one of those oh crap moments, one of those oh my God. Because within minutes, our phone lines lit up. And people from all over the country, people from Massachusetts, people from California, people from Washington State, people from Idaho, people from Texas, people from Florida, everybody was calling and saying, I've noticed the same thing. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, my windshield would be filled with bugs. Even in the cities. And now, no bugs. When Louise and I first moved here to Portland, this was 15 years ago. I think it was 2005. I guess that's 16 years ago. When we first moved here to Portland, we were living in a floating home down in the Willamette River, and there were bugs everywhere. There were gnats, there were mosquitoes, there were spiders. I mean, spiders love to live on the river. Spider webs everywhere because there were lots of bugs for the spiders to eat. One of our neighbors had a swallow house. Swallows are these little birds about the size of finches, but they're insect eaters. And they fly like bats. I mean, they just zip, 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 in all kinds of weird, erratic ways because they're grabbing insects. They're super fast. We moved to Washington, D.C. for 7 years. We came back here 4 years ago. In the last 2 years that I've been looking, now we're living on the Columbia River, but same thing, we're back living on the river. And in the last 2 years, I have not seen a single swallow. Maybe they're here, maybe they're still down on the Willamette, but I don't think so. I think the insect-eating birds are dying. I remember these things from when I was a kid. But, they're talking now about an insect apocalypse. 30-40% of all the insects on Earth are gone. And that's just the beginning. And again, this ties into COVID. The human population at the time of the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago, there were around 5 million of us. From then up until the time of Jesus, we grew up to around a quarter of a billion, 250 million. From the time of Jesus, 2,000 years ago until 1800, it took us 2,000 years to go from a quarter billion to 1 billion people. We hit 1 billion people in 1800. Our second billion, so all of human history, 300,000 years of human history to reach 1 billion humans on this planet. And in 1800, the planet was well settled. The second billion only took 130 years, 1930. The third billion only took 30 years, 1960. The fourth billion took only 14 years, 1974. The fifth billion took only 13 years, 1983, as I recall, if I'm doing my math right. And now we're on the edge. We're at 7.6, 7.7 billion people. We're on the edge of 8 billion people. As a result, 80% of all the wild animals on Earth have vanished. 1 million species right now are on the verge of extinction. Just since 1970, North America has lost 1/3 of all its birds. Fully 96% of all mammals on this planet are us and the animals we use for food. 96%. Wild mammals, 4%. And as a result, we're driving deeper and deeper into parts of nature where humans didn't used to be. Or when they were in those places, they knew how to live in balance with their ecosystems. And as a result, just in my lifetime, just in the recent, actually just in the last 30 years, 40 years, we've seen all these diseases jump out of the wild and into the human race. AIDS, SARS, Zika, MERS, dengue fever, West Nile fever, Ebola, Marburg disease, Lyme disease, and now COVID. Every single one of these things have become endemic in just the lifetime of my children. None of them plagued the human race before now. Meanwhile, we're wiping out other species at a rate that we haven't seen since the dinosaurs vanished. In fact, on a year-to-year basis, on a decade-to-decade basis, it appears that the extinction that's happening right now is actually happening faster than the extinction that happened when the dinosaurs vanished. And then you look at the industrial activity. I don't know if you've seen these. There have been several articles in the mainstream press. There was one in the Financial Times the other day. I'm assuming the Times and the Washington Post covered it. Human sperm counts are collapsing around the world. They're guessing that this has to do with phthalates, these chemicals that they put in processed foods or in food packaging rather, so that that prevents water, that makes them waterproof basically. So that the little paper tray that you microwave your frozen dinner in, so that it doesn't just soak that microwave, it's filled with phthalates. These chemicals your body thinks are estrogen. They're hormone disruptors. And the collapse in sperm count now, it's around 40% in America right now. And they're saying that by the year 2045, from one study, quote, sperm counts are set to reach 0 in 2045. That's kind of the end of the human race. There are things we can do. We can eat a lot less meat. That's one of the major burdens on the planet. Again, we and our animals that we eat, 96% of all the mammals on Earth. We have to learn respect for non-human life. We need to change our religions and our cultures. And perhaps most importantly, we need to empower women, because in societies where women have equal economic and political power, populations stabilize. In those societies where women are the property of men, populations explode. And that's been one of the main things driving this population explosion since 1800. So COVID is just the last in a long line of warning signals to us, and there will be more coming. We have to get our act together.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Be back with your thoughts and calls and a little bit more of the news of the day right after this. Stick around. And welcome back. Let's see here. Steve in Topanga, California. Hey, Steve, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Well, I've been thinking, I believe that the Republican Party is a terrorist organization. And I think the Democrats have to go it alone. You know, just like Obamacare, the Democrats made concessions and they got no votes from the Republicans. And I think that a lot of people don't realize what the Republicans are doing to them. They haven't read your book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, or Howard Zenn's book, The People's History of the United States, or your Monopoly book. They don't have time. But if something really changes them or their lives, if they get an increase in wages, if they get health care, I talked to my brother, who I could not have an intellectual conversation with, and a few of my friends. They're totally Trumper guys. And I tried to be reasonable and everything. It just didn't work. It's time for the Democrats to just go it alone. And if they don't put some real meat on the table for people and show it to them, instead of trying to explain it to them intellectually, it's not going to work. They have to know that the Republicans will sabotage everything. And that's kind of my rant, is they need to be shown physically, not intellectually, and it's time for the Democrats to step up and go.
And that's why they need to kill a filibuster.
Yeah, absolutely. All that
because they're not going to be able to get anything done as long as Republicans have control over the Senate with the filibuster.
This is their chance, because it's all going to come back recycled again in 2 years and in 4 years. And if people, we got 70 million people that voted for Trump or something ridiculous, and it's not changing. People are not. You're not going to talk them out of what they believe. That's not going to work. But if there's physical changes in their life, if their lives improve because of Democratic policies, I think that's the only way to go. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Steve, and I think that it's more important than just the survival of the Democratic Party or, winning partisan battles with Republicans on a state-by-state basis or even federally. I think that if Americans lose confidence in the ability of the Democratic Party to do things for them,
absolutely,
and the Republicans come forward and continue lying to them the way Donald Trump did, that they are the party of the people, that they're the ones who are standing up for the little guy, and then never do anything. That cynicism that has grown among the American people and that led to the Trump victory in 2016, that cynicism is going to go absolutely screaming viral, and you are going to see an embrace of fascism in this country, very much like we saw in the South in the 1850s and early 1860s.
This is exactly what I'm afraid of, is debating them or talking it through is not going to work. People don't have time for that. They're barely surviving. Yeah. That's why the Democrats have to really make some moves and really be bold. This is their chance, because we're on a knife's edge for which way we're going to go. And anyway, thanks for taking my call, Tom.
My pleasure, Steve. Thanks a lot for calling. It's great talking to you. We'll be back. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. Stick around. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. We have a new video up over at thomhartmann.com about conspiracy theories. Abby Richards came up with a kind of a hierarchy of conspiracies, maybe a variation on the old Maslow hierarchy. And it goes from actual conspiracies to maybe this was a conspiracy, maybe not, we have questions, to this is kind of crazy stuff, but who knows, flying saucers, for example, to actual science denial, conspiracy theories that actually serve to promote the interests of a particular industry or wealthy individuals, to the totally crazy stuff, the flat earth, the reptilian overlords and all that kind of thing, conspiracy theories that can do tremendous damage. And, one of those being one of the conspiracy theories that, brought two Republicans into Congress this year. So anyhow, I lay the whole thing out with a new video for our supporters over at thomhartmann.com. So, in fact, this should probably be my op-ed and principal rant for tomorrow, but I'll toss it out here very quickly right now. When Mitch McConnell decided that the most important thing in the world to him was getting right-wing judges on the federal courts, and there were enough Democrats in the Senate to use the filibuster to block those judges, what did Mitch McConnell do? He ended the filibuster for judges. That's how he got Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. Do the Democrats, he changed the Senate rules. He held a vote, and he had every Republican vote yes on changing the Senate rule. All it takes is a simple majority vote in the Senate to change the rules. You can do it anytime you want. And he ended the filibuster for judges for the Supreme Court all by himself with the Republicans, and then proceeded to push a couple of hundred right-wing Federalist Society vetted federal judges onto the Supreme Court. So the question that we need to put before Vice President Harris and President Biden and Senate Majority Leader Schumer is, do you believe in your agenda? Do you believe in a $15 minimum wage? Do you believe in a Green New Deal? Do you believe in Medicare for all, or at least a public option? Do you believe in ending student debt? Do you believe in those things? Do you care about those things as much as Mitch McConnell believed in putting right-wing judges, in many cases unqualified right-wing lawyers who had literally never been judges before in their lives, putting those people on the Supreme Court? Do you, Joe Biden, believe in the $15 minimum wage enough to argue that Democrats in the Senate should do what Mitch McConnell did when it came to judges on the Supreme Court? Do you, Kamala Harris, believe strongly enough in the things that you campaigned on in the primary and in the general election to take the action, or at least to encourage Senator Schumer to take the action that Mitch McConnell took when he believed that the future of the Republican Party and Republican ideology, the economic and political and social theories that are embraced by Republicans, when he believed that those were only going to be able to be advanced if they could seize control of the judicial branch of government, and the only way to do that was to end the filibuster for judges in the Senate. And most importantly, do you, Mitch McConnell, do you, Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, believe in the $15 minimum wage, believe in a substantial infrastructure rebuild of America that will put millions of people to work and will reduce our dependence on carbon and fossil fuels? Do you believe in ending student debt and providing young people with an option of going to state-run colleges and universities and junior colleges and trade schools for free or close to free? Do you believe in those things? Do you believe in health care as a right rather than a privilege, whether it's a public option or Medicare for all? Do you, Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Schumer, do you believe in those things enough to give you the courage, the enthusiasm, the will to simply do what Mitch McConnell did when he believed that putting right-wing judges on the Supreme Court was equally important to the fate and future of the Republican Party and the American people? I mean, let's be very clear. Mitch McConnell thinks that the American experiment is badly flawed. He, along with most of the Republican Party, advocate a form of government different than that the founders set up. The founders set up a representative democratic republic. Mitch McConnell and most of the Republican Party do not believe in that any longer. They believe in oligarchy. That's why I wrote this last book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. This is what they believe in. Rule by the rich, not rule by we the people. And he had the courage of his convictions. Mitch McConnell did. He blew up the Senate filibuster for judges for the Supreme Court because he wanted to get to that goal of having an oligarchy in America. And in fact, this week, the Supreme Court is going to be debating whether they should go along with Republicans and make it even harder for people of color to vote in the United States. That's on their agenda. Because Mitch McConnell did what he thought was the right thing. Senator Schumer, do you have the courage to do what Mitch McConnell did? The American people will support you. Do you have the courage? We'll be back with your calls after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Hey, Thom Hartmann here with you, fair and only slightly unbalanced. We'll be right back. Free Speech TV needs you. Seriously. Free Speech TV, 4 times a year, we do this fundraising drive for Free Speech TV to keep the network on the air, and we need your help. One of the things that you can do to help is help us get the word out about Free Speech TV. Tell your friends about it, talk about it on social media, talk about it on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever realm you may be. Take your favorite segments from Free Speech TV. They put little clips up on social media. You could retweet those, or share those, or like those. You can initiate your own. Let's try to increase the number of people who are watching this television network and this program, and just do it ourselves, right? I mean, who better than you and I, who know the quality of this network, than you and I who know the really extraordinary value of this network. And while we're at that, I mean, if you can't afford to make any kind of contribution at all, I get it. But most people watching Free Speech TV could afford $15, $25, $50, could afford $10 a month. I realize that, there are some people in great distress. If you're one of them, just share the word. That doesn't cost anything. And tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your relatives. But if you can't afford to help, Free Speech TV needs your help right now. We need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this show going here on Free Speech TV. And it all depends on whether you pick up the phone and call 877-378-8669 now or not. It's up to you. How much is Free Speech TV worth to you? What kind of value do you get from Free Speech TV? Is it worth as much as, having a cup of coffee every week? Is it worth as much as going to see the shrink every month? Is it, so the cup of coffee might be $10 a week. Seeing the shrink might be $100 or $200 a month. Is it worth, Free Speech TV part of your mental health program? Is it part of your political awareness program? Is it worth, what you may pay to subscribe to an online newspaper like the New York Times or the Washington Post? What's it worth to you? Can you please call now, 877-378-8669, and make a contribution of that amount to Free Speech TV? Or make a monthly contribution, which is the very best. Become a member of the Sustainers Circle and help Free Speech TV know what the baseline that they have for their budget is. Can you do that now, please? 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Free Speech TV offers an extraordinary spectrum of programs with a variety of different kinds of diversity and viewpoints. And the grounding of Free Speech TV, the thing that's at the foundation of all of it, is truth. You will not see a program on Free Speech TV where you can fact check it and find that they're lying to you. You can't. Now, you've got websites like MediaMatters.org that literally fact check Fox News every single day. Fox News and people on Fox News are literally telling lies. And you and I know this, and on Right Wing Hate Radio and a lot of the websites out there, a lot of the right-wing websites. But you can't find those errors on Free Speech TV. And I'll tell you from personal experience, the rare occasions when I get something wrong, and I'm not bragging on how I'm always right. I'm telling you that I put in the work to make sure if I'm saying something, I can back it up. But on the rare occasions when I get something wrong, people do reach out to me to correct it, and I correct it on the air. Because I want you to know that you can trust what I have to say. And I am not speaking just for myself. I know that every person on this network, or at least every person on this network that I personally know, and that's probably at least half of the people who have a program on Free Speech TV, feel the same way. They want you to know, they want it to be real, that their program is truthful. So if truth is important to you, call now. With a $20 gift, there's 2 premiums available to you, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack, just in time for spring. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or a new tote bag, a new Free Speech TV tote bag. With the $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, same design as before. With a $120 gift, you have your choice. There's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or an autographed copy of my latest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. With a $240 gift, you can join one of our virtual meet and greets, or you can get both the Monopoly book, The Hidden History of Monopoly, and The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author. That would be me. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box, our bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the oligarchy book. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and we'll hang out. All right, so those are the premiums. But the real thing that you get when you contribute to Free Speech TV by calling 877-378-8669 right now, the real important thing that you get is the programming. You get the truth. You get information that you can use and you can share, things that you can learn that grow your life. So call now, please. Thank you. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So David Perry over at Medium.com put together a list of 38 reasons to investigate the Trump administration. Everything from the Russian influence over the 2016 election to the Trump family's collusion with Russia to Ivanka Trump's trademarks to federal spending at Trump properties to the civilians killed by Trump's drone strikes to the Trump administration's role in turning the United States into the global epicenter for the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, we are. Yes, it's grim. Their decision to sideline the CDC, politicizing mask wearing just to try to get himself reelected, the number of people who died because the White House kept PPE from blue states, from Democratic-led states, the contents of the Trump documents that Trump refused to release to the House Judiciary Committee and other committees, all the people who wouldn't speak, at all, ignoring subpoenas, violations of the Hatch Act, the deportation of COVID-positive immigrant families, illegal altering of records. Anyhow, there's a whole list. It's over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see here. MJ in Seattle. Hey, MJ, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I am calling because you opened up this possibility that we could look through all our various problems and note the influence of a death cult. A death cult that is okay with killing all the birds. They're okay with killing all, as long as they're farming and making money with Monsanto and so on. And it goes from that to Black Lives Matter. Basically, Black Lives Matter is we've okayed extrajudicial execution. And this is okay. It's
of black people.
Yes, a way of looking at the world where there are expendable people, expendable life, expendable planet. And my sense of it is that wealthy people are simply eating up the planet. And I tell you how I know this, Tom. It's because I am one of those people. You had a guy on your show who was talking about doing psychic experiments with the government, and I've lived a whole life in that space. So that before I was into the later part of grade school, I could tell my dad, "You're wrong about dilution theory, Dad. The gases coming out of the car is gonna take the whole Earth down." It's just information is transmitted to me through dreams, through other kinds of unacceptable medium, and as an artist, I just have to say that one of the things we can do for each other right now is to support each other. People who are not part of the death cult have to understand that we are all very weary of trying to hold on to humanism and spirituality and conscious thought and caring. It's really so difficult to hold on. I'm an older person now. I've been doing this. Well, I told you I was in grade school in the 50s. I'm your age, exactly.
Yeah.
And we have to. I was so proud of the young people this spring to say no to the death cult that's killing black people.
Oh,
in the
look at the
street.
Sunrise Movement. Yeah, and the Black Lives Matter movement, right across the board. No, MJ, I'm totally with you, and you said it so well, and you said it so elegantly, and thank you for that. And I would add, this idea of expendability is insane. And your point, you said, we are eating others, or we are eating the rest of the life on Earth. Back in 1995, I think it was, I went out to I made a pilgrimage to the University of California, Davis, where Professor Jack Forbes was one of the nation's leading professors of Native American studies. He was Native American himself. And I sat in his office with him for the better part of an afternoon. A brilliant man, a very handsome man, tall, erect, long black hair running down the middle of his back in a ponytail. And one of the smartest men I've ever met. And, extraordinarily respected by his students. He wrote a book called Columbus and Other Cannibals that I popularized in Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, and the publisher then brought back into publication, so you can buy it now. And Jack Forbes said to me, my people have a word for the mental illness that your people, your white people, brought from Europe to this continent. It's called Wetiko, W-E-T-I-K-O. And what it means is one who eats the life of others. He said you would call it cannibal. And he said that's what this culture does. It eats the lives of others. It eats the lives of other humans. It eats the lives of other living things. And it is a mental illness. And you are so right, MJ. You are so right. Tom in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Hey, you were talking about the insect population crashing.
Mm-hmm.
That's my wheelhouse. I'm kind of an expert in this stuff. Now, if you want to get someone on your show who knows this stuff better than anybody in the world, his name is Doug Tallamy, Tallamy, and he's an entomologist and ecologist at the University of Delaware. Okay. And he has a thing, and he brings the science, but he brings it to the public. Now, if you're worried about the insects, and those are the little engines that power the whole world, that power the whole ecologies, we need to start planting our native plants. Nothing we can do is more
or stop destroying wild spaces where the native plants have been extant for 100 million years.
Actually, Tom, we can't do that because we have to do it smaller in our gardens because we don't have the time and the resources to do it in the wild places. Because a lot of the wild places and the other places, we have the detritus of our nursery and landscape industry, and they're all non-native. And our insects and our birds work lock and key with the native plants. When you see like a little piece of a leaf.
So, Tom, I totally get what you're saying. So here's my question. How, here I live in northern Oregon, right on the Columbia River. How do I find plants that are, wild plants that I might be able to toss the seeds into my flower pots or into my garden? How do I find those particular plants that are native to this area? I can go on I can Google or go on Amazon and put in wildflowers, and I'll get all kinds of wildflowers that may live here, but they're not necessarily native. How do I find the native plants?
Oh, there's tons of things. Matter of fact, I think you're the home of Xerces, Zerces, which is dedicated to native plants, and they've done a restoration project out in the middle of the Columbia. It's there. It's a native plant. The native plant societies. You can just Google Oregon native plants and you can find it out.
Great. Okay, I'm on.
And also, we have
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tom. I really appreciate it. Daniel in Denver. Hey, Daniel, what's on your mind?
Yeah, Tom, thanks for taking the call. I just wanted to get your thought real quick on one idea about the $15 minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere somebody had said, well, if Manchin and Sienna are opposed to it, then let them name their price. Say Manchin $15, Sienna $12. Put that in as an exception, and then run with it. Transfer the responsibility to them.
Oh, in other words, say, okay, we're going to establish a nationwide minimum wage of $15, except in Arizona and West Virginia, where it will be $12 and $13 respectively.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then, let them deal with their own voters, let them take the heat, and just pass it.
Right. Daniel, thank you for that. That's a good one. Jerry in Kissimmee, Florida. Hey, Jerry, what's up?
Yes, Tom, I just wanted to comment about the college situation that you were talking about with the loans. When I went to undergraduate school at the City College of New York, there was no tuition. This is during the Reagan era. I only paid registration and book fees. Fast forward to my two sons. My oldest son is a principal. He attempted to go and work on his doctorate at Columbia. It was too expensive. He would have had a forego marriage and starting a family. So he chose to start a family, never pursued his doctorate. Society is losing because of that. My youngest son got his BA at a named university. I'm not going to name it. Then his master's, met his girlfriend in undergraduate school. They have both forgoed marriage. He had to give up owning a vehicle. So this hurts society, not only in terms of purchases, but as you said, it's bringing it home to people starting families, buying a home, buying a new refrigerator, an oven, preparing their next generation of children, putting that off. And it's hurting the whole country.
Yeah, I mean, somebody needs to sit Joe Biden down and say, hey, if you want to see a massive stimulus that will make you and your presidency the pride of the last 70 years, do away with this $1.5 trillion student debt, which is the exact same amount as Donald Trump's tax cut. Just reverse Trump's tax cut from 2017 and use that money to pay off all the student debt in America. And you will see a friggin' explosion of economic activity in this United States when you free 2 generations of young people from the burden, from the economic ball and chain of their student debt. 45 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here. Thom Hartmann with you. We'll be back. And welcome back. Jeff in Portland, listening on X-Ray FM. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Hey, good day, Tom. Thanks for kicking off the week with such a robust discussion. And, Tom, I'm going to slightly disagree with you on who should be the target of our outcry concerning the $15 minimum wage. But let me preface it by completely agreeing with you on your broader argument that this is part of the fight against encroaching fascism. You know, FDR himself said as much when he unveiled the Second Bill of Rights, proclaiming when people are hungry and financially unstable, those are the conditions from which dictatorships arise. And you know, Tom, we know Biden has stated he'd like to be known as an FDR-like figure. But drawn on a piece from David Schroeder yesterday, I think our focus right now should be pushing President Biden to start actually acting more like LBJ. And as you've said many times, LBJ was a guy who knew how to knock heads together and get things passed. And,
he knew how to use power.
He knew how to use power. And in Schroeder's piece, he points out that back in '64, there were 2 Democratic senators holding out and opposing Medicare. And LBJ pressured them and got them on board and made history as we know it. So, Tom, shouldn't we be calling on the White House comment line and not, instead of focusing on Schumer or Harris, actually urging Biden to use power, use the bully pulpit, and do what he has to do and give millions of working poor people a desperately needed raise? If he wants to be FDR, he's got to be LBJ first. What do you think?
I agree, Jeff. I think that's a very cogent analysis. I hadn't read David's newsletter yesterday. I was writing on my next book all day, and so I just kind of had my nose buried in privacy issues in the 18th century. But you're absolutely right, and I guarantee you there is something that Kyrsten Sinema wants. There is something that Joe Manchin wants. And this is what LBJ understood. This is what FDR understood, for that matter, although he didn't need to negotiate anywhere near as much because the crisis was so great of the Republican Great Depression. But LBJ certainly understood this, and he would go to those people, and it wasn't just a matter of, bunching their shirts up and sticking his face in their face. I mean, he tried doing that with Arthur Miller, the head of the Fed. It didn't even work. But mostly what he would do is he would have his aides figure out, okay, we've got Senator Eastland is causing a problem for us. What does he want? Well, it turns out that what Senator Eastland actually wants is a new $300 million bridge built across the so-and-so river in his hometown. Okay, fine. We'll give you that bridge. You give us the end of the filibuster. Find out what Joe Manchin wants and give it to him. But give it to him in exchange for something.
Yeah, I mean, the president has so much power, as we saw from the last guy. And one of the senators that was holding out at the time, I think it was George Smathers of Florida, when they asked him why he changed his mind, he said, because the president told me to. You don't, it doesn't need to be anything, overly specific even, it just.
Well, I doubt if he got something as a deal, he wouldn't have said that,
Right.
But, he's being a good soldier, but and Smathers was for a Southern conservative was I don't want to praise him. He was also a screaming racist. But I get your point, Jeff. I totally get your point. And thank you for making it. Thank you for letting me know what David was talking about yesterday, because I often find a lot of value in his newsletter. I do subscribe to it. It's really well worth it. Jeff, thank you. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. On the Science Revolution this week, Nick Dearden is here with Global Justice Now. Should America have a people's vaccine? Nick is calling for an immediate suspension of patents on COVID-19 vaccines and an international plan to ramp up production as rapidly as possible. Barry C. Lynn from Open Markets Institute drops by on how monopolies have created a crisis in the food industries. Zach Corrigan is here from Food and Water Justice on how pork slaughter plants with self-inspection rules are not working well and endangering our health. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are available. Ten minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Jim in Wheaton, Illinois. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, you're talking about bugs. I remember growing up in the western suburbs of Chicago, especially in the summertime, you'd have to knock on the door if it was nighttime, the porch light was on, knock on the door to make sure someone would turn off the light so the bugs wouldn't get into the house.
I remember
when you came in. And now there are no bugs around the porch lights. So not only that, but what I noticed was, this is partly due to West Nile virus, but I don't know if growing up in Michigan you experienced the same thing, but the crow population, there used to be, like, playing outside along the telephone wires and electrical wires, there were just hundreds, if not thousands, of crows, and it was like sometimes the sound of them were deafening because of
grackles too.
Correct, yeah, and
I think they occupy the same ecological niche, more or less.
And again, part of that is because of West Nile virus, but I think part of it is also because of the lack of insects, and the reason why that is I don't think it's any mystery. Monsanto and all of the herbicides, pesticides that are being used in our ecosystem are killing off the smaller bugs, which then eventually kill off the birds who are eating them, and so on and so forth. We need to address this issue because it's also killing people. There hasn't been a single, and they even say this on the website, on Monsanto's website. There has been a single human study about the effect of GMOs on the gut, on your biological response to eating these chemicals, even if it's just trace amounts of these chemicals. There's not been a single study.
Jim, I have seen studies that suggest that the use of Roundup on wheat is because they just started this. They started about 4 years before this explosion of gluten intolerance happened, where they would spray Roundup on the wheat crop 1 week before it was to be harvested, so that all the wheat stalks would turn brown and brittle, so that when the harvesting machine came through, it could more easily cut the heads off the wheat. And rather than being green and gumming up the machines, they were brown and brittle, and they would just pop right off. And so they gained about a 15% increase in crop yield as a result of that. That use of Roundup on wheat crops ties directly, in my opinion, and statistically, and you can Google this, statistically, to this explosion of gluten intolerance, which I started experiencing about 20 years ago. In fact, I started experiencing it in 2001, and it's because the Roundup is messy. It doesn't just kill bugs; it kills the bacteria in your gut that protect you.
Yeah.
Is it back to you?
Not only that, Tom, but like my wife, she'll chastise me for maybe saying something incorrectly, but she went to school for nutritional health, and not only is it affecting the chemical makeup of the wheat, but also they're genetically modifying. It's not just the chemicals to kill the pests around the crop.
Well, this is an herbicide. It's to kill the plant.
Right. But it's also we used to have the arbor waves of grain. Used to be like 6-7 feet tall grains of waving in the wind. Now it's called a dwarf wheat. It's like 1-2 feet tall, but the yield is like 700% more.
Right, less energy into the stalk, more into the seeds.
Correct, and so the gluten is more dense. And so we're not eating like true wheat, and you've got people like somebody who I greatly admire, Neil deGrasse Tyson, saying things like, the GMOs we've been genetically modifying things for thousands of years. We're not changing the chemical makeup, maybe like cross pollinating, but we didn't start changing.
Yeah, we did it the way Mendel used to do it. Neil deGrasse Tyson, by the way, will be on this show on Wednesday.
Well, tell him that Jim from Wheaton said he's wrong about GMOs.
Okay, I'm not sure I want to get into a debate with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's honest to God, one of the smartest men on earth.
Yes, and that's why, just like the Republican Party, people in the Republican caucus spouting lies on the floor. Neil deGrasse Tyson, being one of the smartest people you'll ever meet, can't be saying misinformation about GMOs. It's not like Handel. It's about changing the chemical makeup.
I get that. I don't have firsthand knowledge of his saying that, but I get what you're saying. Jim, thank you for your comments. Brian in Duval, Washington. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Okay, so I called you a couple weeks ago for the first time. I told you I grew up in Southeast Michigan, as did you. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I was sort of the nature boy in my neighborhood. I used to go out in the wintertime, and I did this in the wintertime because all the leaves were off the trees. and gather cocoons from polyphemus moths, cecropia moths, these big
me too.
silk moths. They fly at night.
When I was 7.
I did that. And, when I go back there now, I still have family back there. When I go back there in the wintertime during Christmas, I don't see them anymore. I never see them.
That's right.
I've lived in Seattle now for 40 years. I've been very involved in salmon protection and watershed protection issues. And I used to walk a lot of streams. It's really easy for me to tell good streams whose watersheds are still intact from poor streams. And it boils down to critical mass in the watershed. To save salmon, you have to have a certain amount of land in the watershed be set aside. When you set aside that land, you protect habitat for all kinds of other creatures.
I'm with you, Brian, and we need to be doing this nationwide. We need to do this institutionally. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It does require every single one of us, thus demos. It requires every single one of us to participate, and there's a lot of ways you can participate. So get out there, get active, tag. You are it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Be kind to yourself and those around you.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Thom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Thom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Thom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Thom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Thom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Thom.